Previously, our male lead was just a bottom-tier student who couldn't awaken any abilities, constantly getting bullied by his classmates. But when some punks from the student council came looking for trouble, he easily took them down with just a few basic punches. This left the Academy's #1 genius in complete shock. But our male lead was actually disappointed because he hadn't even warmed up yet. What no one knew was that he hadn't just awakened a triple S grade ability, he was also the only person in the world with all 5 elemental attributes. You see, this is a world ravaged by demonic beasts. Once everyone here reaches adulthood, they awaken an ability. In his past life, our male lead had awakened an S-grade talent, but in the final battle against the demonic beasts, he lost his only little sister. Devastated, he decided to self-detonate to take the Demon King down with him. But when he opened his eyes again, everything had changed. Not only was he reborn 10 years in the past, but he also awakened the ultimate devouring ability. With the world still safe from destruction, he had plenty of time to build up his strength. Just then, he felt a sudden surge of energy inside him. It was his lightning assassin class from his past life, followed by the awakening of the gluttony system, which allowed him to devour other abilities. Before Sitchin could even check his status, or finish his class transition, a sudden knock on the door cut off his thoughts. The door burst open, and Ma Long rushed in looking absolutely panicked. He ran straight to the bed and blurted out, "Bro, you're finally awake. Are you okay?" Sitchin casually replied that he was fine, but his mind was elsewhere. It was clear that only he could see the system interface. Oblivious to Sitchin's thoughts, Ma Long kept checking him from head to toe, only to freeze when he noticed that all of yesterday's wounds were completely gone. A guy who had been beaten half to death yesterday had fully recovered overnight. This healing rate was faster than even awakened ones. Ma Long muttered in utter disbelief. He was Sitchin's college roommate. In Sitchin's past life, Ma Long had also awakened, but he stayed at the bottom of the class and died a tragic death when the 3rd Demon King descended. But right now, that same friend was standing right in front of him, alive and well. It was at this very moment that Sitchin truly realized he had regressed. Ma Long, still clueless, hurriedly continued, "Tomorrow is the grade evaluation. Since you're fine, you'd better get ready. Even if you haven't awakened, it still affects our graduation." The scene shifts to the campus at sunset, filled with the lively chatter of students walking by. Groups of students were busy with their own things, and in the corner, a few guys were playing soccer, full of energy. Sitchin stood in silence, looking off into the distance. It had been a lifetime since he last saw so many living people. His words sent a shiver down Ma Long's spine, prompting him to ask, "What did you say? That sounds creepy, man." But to Sitchin, he knew all this peace would eventually vanish. If he didn't change anything, that hopeless future would repeat itself. His eyes filled with determination. He had to get stronger, and fast. In this era, the only way for awakened individuals to level up is to hunt monsters inside the dungeons. But those zones are tightly controlled by the major guilds, leaving regular folks with virtually no chance to enter. Sitchin quietly assessed his own status. Based on his current stats, where did he rank? In this society, power is strictly ranked from high to low, starting with S, then A, B, C, D, and E. Most students never make it past E rank. Reaching D rank is reserved for a handful of geniuses or kids from powerful guilds. So, what rank was he? Sitchin glanced at Ma Long and smiled inwardly. At the very least, he was stronger than his buddy. Just then, a soccer ball flew straight into Ma Long's face, knocking him flat on the ground. His glasses shattered as a mocking voice sneered, "Well, look who it is, Sitchin and Ma Long." Gongcheng stood there with a smug, condescending smirk, commenting on how quickly they had recovered. Ma Long scrambled to his feet, pale-faced, muttering that they were extremely unlucky to run into him. Sitchin just stood there silently, his gaze turning icy cold. Gongcheng continued to mock them. "I told you guys, these two are like punching bags. You knew I was playing soccer here, so why didn't you bring me water?" The tension in the air instantly spiked. Ma Long trembled reflexively, bowing his head to apologize as he turned to go buy water. But at that exact moment, Sitchin spoke up. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to make everyone freeze in their tracks. "You did nothing wrong. They're the ones who should apologize." Sitchin paused, his eyes locked onto the bully. Was it really him? Memories from his past life rushed back like a tidal wave, the constant beatings and endless humiliation. It all felt like it happened just yesterday. Sensing things were about to get ugly, Ma Long panicked and yelled, "Hey, you guys need to stop." But Gongcheng just turned around with a smug grin. his voice dripping with sarcasm. Why should we stop? I'm helping the guy. He hasn't even awakened yet, so doesn't he need a little motivation? As soon as the words left his mouth, his lackeys behind him burst into roaring laughter. A piercing laugh echoes across the schoolyard as the group turns to leave, casually tossing back a cold remark. Did he pass out already? How boring. Let us go. Ma Long quickly rushes over to support Si Chen, checking on him with deep concern. Are you okay? Right then, tears stream down his face as his voice drops. Why? Why will they not just leave us alone? Clenching his fists, a cold realization washes over him. Malice does not just exist inside the dungeons, it is right here in our world too. That line makes Gongcheng stop in his tracks. He turns around, a dangerous glint in his eyes. What did you just say? He wears a twisted grin, his voice dripping with malice. Go on. Keep beating him up. But at that very moment, reality seems to snap back. He is still standing right in front of Si Chen with a look of pure contempt, repeating his usual arrogant line. You knew I was playing ball here, and you did not even bring me water? Terrified, Ma Long bows his head in apology and starts to run off, but Si Chen takes a step forward, his voice calm yet firm. You did nothing wrong. They are the ones who should apologize. The moment he finishes his sentence, Gongcheng's face twists in fury, turning utterly savage. Panicking, Ma Long tugs on his sleeve. Si Chen, what are you saying? But it is too late. Gongcheng unleashes his aura and takes a step forward. Si Chen's eyes go cold as details about the bully flash in his mind. Gongcheng only acts like a big shot because his older brother is the strongest student council president. In reality, he is nothing special. Whispers begin to ripple through the crowd. Look, another drama is about to start. Did they not just get out of the hospital? One is the weakest awakened, and the other is not even awakened yet. They really are the school's ultimate losers. Gongcheng stops right in front of Si Chen, intentionally flexing his aura to intimidate him. What did you just say? Si Chen merely frowns slightly, responding with cold indifference. Stay away from us from now on. His words are like pouring gasoline on a fire. Infuriated, Gongcheng charges forward. I think you are tired of living. But before the punch can land, it is blocked. Si Chen counters so fast that no one can even see his movement. Gongcheng is sent stumbling back, clutching his arm and crying out in pain. The surrounding crowd is stunned. What just happened? Did he just block Gongcheng's punch? No way, he is not even awakened yet. Am I seeing things? Gongcheng roars in anger. An unawakened trash dares to provoke me. Meanwhile, Si Chen lets out a cold smirk, thinking to himself, perfect, I will use you as a test subject. Class conversion system activated. Instantly, the energy inside his body shifts. Conversion complete. Level 1. Lightning Assassin. Standing nearby, Ma Long's eyes widen. When did you awaken? Si Chen does not answer. He just raises his hand and curls his finger in a mocking gesture. Gongcheng goes absolutely berserk, instantly activating his skill as he charges with a roar. Have you forgotten what it feels like to be crushed by the strong? But this time, things are completely different. Every single one of his strikes is easily deflected and countered with a barrage of relentless blows. In the blink of an eye, he is sent flying, his body battered and bruised, throwing the crowd into a frenzy. What just happened? Did he send Gongcheng flying with a single blow? Unbelievable. Gongcheng's face is contorted with pain and panic, and the crowd begins to murmur. Is that really Si Chen? What on earth happened to him? Sprawled on the ground, Gongcheng refuses to accept defeat, screaming, You dared to cheap shot me. He then turns to bark at his lackeys. What are you guys standing around for? But nobody dares to take a step forward. Jiangbai stands frozen on the spot. In front of him is a completely different Si Chen, radiating an overwhelming pressure. Gongcheng grits his teeth and lunges forward once more. I will kill you. But this time, the moment he swings his arm, Si Chen catches it in a vice grip. A sickening crack of bone echoes, and he screams in agony. Si Chen looks down at him, his voice icy, and his eyes filled with pure contempt. Too weak. With that, he delivers a final blow, sending him flying like a rag doll. Gongcheng's body crashes heavily against the wall before slumping to the ground. With a clear handprint left on his face, Ma Long stands there frozen, then slowly sinks to his knees, his entire body trembling. Si Chen, since when? His voice is filled with utter confusion. How did you get so strong? Meanwhile, Si Chen quietly analyzes his situation, drawing a few conclusions. First, he can still switch to his lightning assassin form at any given moment, just like before. Although his system level is only level 1, his current state is more than enough to overwhelm low-level awakened ones. This proves his rank is at least higher than E-class, though his exact grade remains a mystery. Suddenly, his gaze shifts. There is still one problem. He clearly defeated his opponent, yet his system values have not changed at all. His hand slowly draws his weapon. Could it be? Seeing this, Ma Long instantly panics. Wait, Si-chen, what are you doing? But Si-chen has already raised his weapon, pointing the sharp blade directly at Gong Cheng's throat, his cold eyes delivering a final verdict. Is the method to gain experience still the same as before? Without another word, Si-chen lunges forward, raining down a barrage of fierce attacks on Gong Cheng, leaving him absolutely no chance to fight back. Just as the tension reaches its absolute peak, Ling Yu suddenly appears. Her voice is calm, yet it carries a clear warning. Hey, this is a school. Even though he started it, this punishment is more than enough. He will not dare to cause any more trouble. Hearing this, Si-chen merely gives her a cold glance, then casually tosses Gong Cheng aside like trash. A question flashed through his mind. Why was the student council so quick to protect a guy like that? But in the end, he didn't want to overdo it. He just needed to scare this kind of trash enough to back off, otherwise, they'd keep coming back for more. Around them, the onlookers couldn't hide their sheer terror. That guy's eyes were terrifying just now. Best to stay away from him, someone whispered. Is that really Tu Tran? Wasn't he always the weakest, poorest loser in the school? The crowd quickly dispersed as if nothing had ever happened. Lin Vu stood there, her eyes turning cold as she listened to the whispers. The weakest and poorest? The scene cuts to the male dorm. Inside, Ma Long was frantically trying to convince his roommates. Guys, you've got to believe me. Tu Tran has really awakened, and he's a ridiculously powerful lightning-class assassin. He beat Kung Than so bad, the guy couldn't even stand up. Now none of those jerks even dare look us in the eye. Hang Ba picked his ear, looking completely bored out of his mind. Oh yeah? Then where is he now? I think he went for a run, Ma Long mumbled, sounding unsure. Instantly, a voice snapped back at him. He's that strong and he's out jogging? Why would an awakened need basic training like that? Does that make any sense to you? Hang Hu chimed in with a sneer. Looks like Ma Long got his brain scrambled. Wake up, man. The reason the four of us were thrown into this dorm together is simple. We are the absolute bottom of our grade. That's a fact, and it's never going to change. Hang Ta raised his voice, boasting, Shoot, I'm ranked 4th from the bottom, which easily makes me the strongest guy in this room. Everyone only gets to awaken one class in their entire life. Those two are just useless supports, while I am a core mage, the only actual combat class in this entire dorm. That is the reality, and you can't change it. So you telling me a pathetic loser like Tu Tran awakened as a lightning assassin? What an absolute joke. He grinned, full of himself. Honestly, I've been feeling a lot stronger lately. Who knows? Maybe after tomorrow's test, I'll even get scouted by a top guild. After all, tomorrow is the final rank evaluation before graduation. When the time comes, the truth will be laid bare. Meanwhile, in another part of the academy, an E-rank dungeon trial had just wrapped up. Kung Din walked out calmly, his hands shoved in his pockets as he declared the trial over, but his eyes narrowed when he spotted Kung Than waiting for him. What are you doing here? Kung Din asked, sounding confused. Kung Than gritted his teeth, his face twisted in pure malice. Bro, if you don't handle this guy, I won't be able to sleep tonight. He humiliated me in front of the entire school. He clearly has zero respect for you. Kung Din let out a heavy sigh. Though annoyed, he replied, Fine, I'll take care of it. The scene shifts to a quiet room, where a plate of half-sliced steak sits on the table. Lin Vu looked at him, asking, So, how do you plan on handling this? Kung Din shrugged indifferently. If my brother is weak, he only has himself to blame. He then looked up. Is that kid really as strong as they say? Lin Vu offered a calm analysis. You already know the strength and rank of every single student in this academy. There are fewer than 10 students who have reached D rank, and you've already recruited all of them into your guild. Plus, none of the ordinary students have even set foot in a dungeon. Normal awakened have no way of leveling up. No one can touch you. Meanwhile, under a torrential downpour, Tu Tran was silently pushing his limits. Strapped with 100 kilograms of weights, he had already run 20 kilometers. Every step was agonizingly heavy, but he refused to stop. He knew all too well that basic physical training was key to building a strong foundation, and an awakened's power limit directly depends on their physical strength. If your body isn't strong enough, you can never unleash the true potential of your class. Yet, he was still far from satisfied. This was nowhere near enough. Memories of the dark future flooded his mind. In the year 60, the demon king of wrath broke his seal, descending upon the human world. In the blink of an eye, millions were slaughtered, and that monster took the life of the only family he had left, his younger sister. Her desperate cries for help still echoed in his head. It was also wrath who tore open the gates of hell, unleashing the other demon kings upon this world. Tu Tran's eyes burned with resolve. His first target was clear. Kill Wrath. He only had 3 years. The enemy was definitely growing stronger by the second. If he wanted to change the future, he had to outpace him. Just then, his phone suddenly buzzed. Tu Tran paused, pulling it out. The screen showed an incoming call from Tu Van. He answered, his voice softening. Hey. On the other end, a familiar, sweet voice echoed. Hey bro, why did you call me so many times today? My phone died during my exam, and I just got back to the dorm to charge it. She continued cheerfully. If I win this competition, we can finally pay off our rent. Hearing those words, a sharp ache squeezed Tu Tran's chest. In that dark, horrific future, he had begged 1,000 times for a second chance. Now, he finally had it. Tu Van's voice cut through his thoughts. Hey, is it raining over there? Why are you so quiet? Tu Tran took a deep breath, silently swearing he would protect her no matter the cost. It's nothing, he replied softly. I just really missed hearing your voice. She let out a confused giggle. What are you talking about? You're acting so weird. Didn't we just talk the day before yesterday? I'll come see you as soon as my exams are over. Just wait for my good news. With that, she hung up. Tu Tran stood silently in the pouring rain, staring into the distance. Now, the battle to rewrite the future had officially begun. He ran 3 more laps, knowing he had to get stronger as fast as possible to protect everything in front of him. 8 hours had passed since he returned, and he was slowly getting used to this younger, yet still weak, body. The biggest problem right now was still leveling up. To get stronger, he had to enter the dungeons, but those places were completely monopolized by the guilds, leaving ordinary people with no chance of getting near them. So how could he hunt monsters, and what exactly was that gluttony power? Just then, a mechanical voice echoed in his head. System booting up. Boot complete. Gluttony system activated. Before Tu Tran could even react, the space around him warped, and his body was pulled away in a daze. By the time he regained consciousness, he was standing in a completely unfamiliar place. Before him was a dark, eerie path stretching out endlessly. Tu Tran frowned slightly, a deep sense of alertness rising within him. Where is this? I was definitely just asleep. Tu Tran stared at the object in front of him, his gaze locking onto the bizarre tower, with only one question in his mind. What on earth is this? He glanced around, the scenery completely foreign, unlike any place he had ever known. Just then, the muddy ground ahead began to squirm, and a Tang Tu crawled out. The air instantly grew tense as the system voiced in his head, transitioning class. Tu Tran immediately realized, a magical beast. Could this place be a dungeon? The voice finished. Class transition complete. Level 1. Lightning Assassin. With no time to lose, he quickly steeled himself. Even though he didn't understand what was going on, he had to deal with the threat right in front of him first. Lightning surged inside him, activating Flash Step as electricity pulsed through his body, channeling into his arm to form a razor-sharp blade. At that moment, a swarm of Tang Tu surged out of the mud like a storm, but Tu Tran didn't slow down. His body glided like lightning, tearing through their ranks in a split second. A fang flew into the air as blood splattered. With his current strength, these E-rank monsters stood absolutely no chance. A notification rang out. Item acquired. 3 Tang Tu fangs. Everything felt terrifyingly real. Nothing like a dream. 52 experience points gained. His status board updated instantly. Level up. Level 2. All stats increased by 5 points. Tu Tran clenched his fists, his eyes lighting up. Most importantly, he could hunt monsters here to level up. This was a place where he could solo farm. With that thought, he turned back to look at the Tang Tu behind him, a smirk playing on his lips. If that was the case, he was going to take full advantage of this. As the battle raged on, system alerts chimed repeatedly. 320 experience points gained. Leveled up. Level 3 Lightning Assassin. Items obtained. 18 Tang Tu fangs and 1 Tang Tu crystal. His leveling speed was unbelievably fast, especially when facing the boss monster. The experience gained far exceeded that of ordinary monsters, shooting him up 2 levels in an instant. Just then, a new notification appeared on the screen. Devour available. Tu Tran froze, his eyes wide with shock. What does Devour mean? A thought flashed through his mind. Could this be the true essence of his gluttony power? The status bar began to shift. Devouring in progress. He reached out and grabbed the sphere of light in front of him, and the details immediately popped up. Tang Tu King, Cloud Warrior class, Frostbone physique, Ice immunity. Absorbed monsters will be converted into cards. Tu Tran was stunned. He could do more than just kill them. He could devour them and turn their classes into his own. His eyes trembled slightly as the surrounding space suddenly began to blur. A familiar image flashed before him, the aura of the Blue Moon Demon King. Tu Tran panicked. The power of gluttony was supposed to belong to the Demon King, yet here it was, in his grasp. Normally, a person could only possess one class. But now he had two, and if he kept devouring, the number of classes he could hold might be limitless. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, but before he could fully wrap his head around it, a terrifying pressure descended upon him. A voice boomed, seemingly tearing through the space. "You're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a very long time." The system issued a warning. Domain boss. Tu Tran immediately went on high alert. In this world, power was ranked from E rank to S rank. In his past life, he had risked his life just to touch the S rank threshold, but right now, his limit was only D rank. Yet the enemy before him was an S rank boss. The gap between them was absolute. What he couldn't comprehend was why an S rank monster would appear here, and how it even knew his name. The battle erupted. Tu Tran was constantly pushed back. His opponent unleashed devastating attacks, but intentionally avoided vital spots, as if trying to corner him without dealing a killing blow. After dozens of rounds, the boss stopped, his voice cold. Still resisting? Tu Tran immediately realized the boss wanted to subjugate him. The enemy continued. "You should rethink my offer. Stay here with me to guard the demon tower. This is a rare opportunity." Tu Tran replied, without a moment's hesitation. "No matter what, I'm not staying in this godforsaken place." The moment the words left his mouth, a blade slashed forward at a terrifying speed, leaving him barely any time to react. The enemy said coldly, "Do you think I'm keeping you alive just because you're the only one who made it here?" All around them, monsters began crawling out of the swamp. He lowered his voice menacingly. "I'm asking you one last time. Stay or be crushed." The system inside Tu Tran roared as his power surged. He grit his teeth, his killing intent exploding. "I choose." With those final words, his body shot forward like a bolt of lightning, with one sole purpose, to kill his enemy. The enemy burst into a mocking, arrogant laugh, but amidst the chaos of battle, Tu Tran kept his head completely clear. He began to read the patterns in every strike. Each sword swing had a delay of about 0.4 seconds, followed by a 0.2-second recovery window. Capitalizing on that tiny window was his only chance to counter. He struck instantly, channeling lightning into his blade and driving it straight toward the opponent's heart. A surge of electricity exploded, paralyzing the target. While it wasn't enough to kill an S-class boss, it was plenty to lock him down for a few seconds. Without hesitation, he activated Divine Flash, turning his entire body into electricity and dashing forward. Throughout the fight, he had noticed only a single source of light in the area, which had to be the exit. He reached out, but just as his hand was about to touch the light, it vanished into thin air. Immediately after, that cold voice echoed from behind. "Too bad. That was just an illusion. The exit you're looking for doesn't exist. This place is no demon cave." He stepped closer, his voice laced with intrigue. "But I must admit, you were quick to spot the opening in my attacks. Impressive. Even when pushed to the absolute brink, you kept your cool to find a way out. You really are someone who can bring hope." At that moment, his memories suddenly fractured. Tu Tran realized everything. This was his final battle against La Minguette in his past life. Lasat's eyes flashed with a deadly light, his entire body freezing up in a bone-chilling aura. In that battle years ago, he had constantly switched between countless terrifying classes, each transformation bringing enough raw power to completely crush any opponent. Tu Tran didn't hesitate. He lunged forward with a powerful kick, but Lasat instantly shifted forms to counterattack. As the enemy began to charge his energy, Tu Tran had already created some distance, his eyes darting back as an unforgettable memory flashed through his mind. Another form of his appeared, like a demon crawling out of hell. It was this exact appearance, with an eerie purple glow radiating from the top of his head, and that was when Tu Tran finally understood. Lasat had once been consumed by Lam Nguyen's devouring power, the very same power that now resided within his own body. Tu Tran froze, the words slipping out of his mouth. Could this place actually be inside my own body? Lasat burst into laughter, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Not only do you possess outstanding combat skills, but your mind is incredibly sharp as well. You deserve to inherit everything here. Tu Tran repeated the words in a daze. Everything here? Lasat held out a glowing key and explained, "This is the key to the demon tower. Lam Nguyen has devoured countless brutal demons. The strongest among them are sealed inside the tower behind me. Your mission is simple. Devour them and turn all of them into your own power." A system notification popped up. Obtained the time rift key. Tu Tran took the key, his eyes still clouded with doubt. Why are you helping me? Lasat's voice sank. There is good and evil even among the demon race. Those demon kings slaughtered my entire clan just for their own selfish gains. I've waited years for my chance at revenge, and finally, I met you. You are our only hope, and the only one who can pull this off. Those words made Tu Tran even more guarded. Who exactly was this guy? But Lasat didn't answer. His body slowly began to fade away, leaving behind only a few words. All the answers lie within the demon tower. Find them yourself. Before vanishing completely, he left one final message. Take my power and seek vengeance. A purple stream of light shot from his body directly into Tu Tran's palm, unleashing a massive surge of power. The system notified him that he had reached level 10 and obtained Lasat's underworld bone. Tu Tran bowed his head, his voice dropping low. I understand. I'll carry your will with me. He stared at the information panel for Purgatory Lasat, his gaze turning cold. Blood must be paid with blood. Just then, warm sunlight streamed through the window, and a voice called out, snapping him back to reality. Wake up! Hurry! Tu Tran startled awake, sitting up in bed. Hang Ta and Hang Hu were rushing to get ready. They had to wear their uniforms for today's rank evaluation. Tu Tran looked around, confusion flooding his mind. Was he back in the dorms already? He checked his body, only to find all his injuries completely gone. Had it all just been a dream? But when he pulled up the system screen, reality stared back at him. All of his levels and items were still there. He had actually reached level 10 overnight. Tu Tran frowned slightly, wondering what rank that would equal. When Hang Ta suddenly got in his face, smirking. I heard you got a lot of praise last night. Did you get stronger? Are you trying to steal my spot as the number 1 in this dorm? Ma Long stood nearby, too scared to say a word. Hang Ta urged them along. Let's go. The evaluation is starting. The group left the dorm, with Hang Ta babbling endlessly the entire way. Everyone in our dorm is rank E, but each rank is split into 3 tiers. You guys are only low tier, while I'm mid tier. The gap between us is huge. I could easily take on 10 of you guys all by myself, you hear me? He grew more and more excited as he kept bragging. Who knows, maybe I'll even rank up this time. Ma Long leaned in close and whispered to Tu Tran. You gotta go all out later. Get a high rank and scare the daylights out of him. Tu Tran remained silent, his gaze darkening. Rank D, huh? The group quickly arrived at the hall. The massive crowd left, Hang Ta completely stunned. Right in the center hung a giant board displaying Awakened University Rank Evaluation Ceremony. Almost everyone had gathered. Right then, Jiang Bai and his lackeys showed up, their arrogant attitude making the crowd part automatically. But the moment his eyes locked onto Si Chen, his entire body froze. He bowed deeply and shouted, Big brother Si Chen, you've arrived. Everyone around them was left utterly speechless. Xiang Zuo stood there like a statue, while Ma Long just smirked, as if he'd seen it coming all along. Si Chen said nothing, simply shoving his hands in his pockets and walking past. But before he could get very far, someone blocked his path. It was Jiang Di, a member of the student council. He smirked with cold, sharp eyes. I heard you got into a fight with Gong Cheng yesterday. Do you even know whose brother he is? He's the little brother of our student council president, Gong Ding. Xiang Zuo and the 2 guys behind him instantly tensed up. Jiang Di stepped closer, his voice heavy with pressure. I have a very sharp sense of smell. I can easily sniff out the strong. He leaned in closer, deliberately trying to intimidate him. But on you, all I smell is a loser destined to spend his entire life at the very bottom of society. Si Chen's response instantly froze the air. He coldly muttered, Are you a dog or something? Jiang Di instantly flew into a rage and roared, What did you just say? Just as things were about to spiral out of control, a calm, steady voice echoed from a distance. Jiang Di froze. Gong Ding walked over with an air of absolute calm, his gaze sharp, yet incredibly composed. He made it clear that he had fully investigated the incident. The fault lay entirely with Gong Cheng, and those who mess up must face the consequences. Hearing this, Jiang Di immediately bowed his head, not daring to argue. Understood, President. Gong Ding said nothing more, quietly scanning the crowd before locking eyes with Si Chen. Their eyes met a silent clash filled with intense tension. Right then, an announcement boomed from the speakers, shattering the heavy silence. The rank evaluation is about to begin. Students, please step forward in order. Gong Ding turned to leave, his tone indifferent. Let's go, time to prep for the test. Thinking Si Chen didn't look like much of a threat, Jiang Di quickly hurried after him. Up above, Ling Yu watched in silence and smiled softly. This exam might actually get interesting. As time ticked by, the first name was called Xiang Zuo. The crowd below instantly erupted into cheers. Though a bit nervous, he stepped through the gate and entered the simulated dungeon space, where a demon core absorbed energy. He unleashed all his power in a single strike, causing the demon core to shatter. The data was quickly transmitted, and the gate changed color. The screen displayed his result. Mid-E rank. The teacher recorded it, but everyone was waiting for the most crucial part. His potential. Standing below, Ma Long anxiously explained that this represents the absolute peak a person can ever reach. The data screen flickered rapidly before locking in. Potential. C. Rank. The announcement declared the test complete, and Xiang Zuo walked out, looking utterly disappointed. Clearly, he hadn't improved as much as he'd hoped over the last 2 years. Before Ma Long could even offer some comfort, a new result blasted through the speakers, shattering the mood. Evaluation complete. Current rank. Low D rank. Potential. B rank. The entire hall instantly went wild. Deafening cheers erupted. The first D rank of the year had finally appeared, sending everyone's excitement and competitive drive straight through the roof. Just a short while later, Jiang Di stepped out of the testing gate, a smug smirk plastered across his face as the announcement rang out loud and clear. Evaluation complete. Current rank. Low D rank. Highest potential. A rank. The moment the results hit, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Ma Long held his head in despair, while Xiang Zuo banged his head against the wall in disbelief. That's already the 8th D-rank student. High above, the two teachers couldn't help but gossip as they looked at the data screen. This year is truly extraordinary. Look at how many students are hitting D-rank, even if they're all low tier. For kids with 0 real combat experience, this is incredibly impressive. The other teacher nodded in agreement. Usually, only 2 or 3 students per graduating class reach this level. If this trend keeps up, this year's exam is going to be something spectacular. Right then, the steady click of leather shoes drew everyone's eyes toward the gate as the announcer's voice boomed once more. Next up for testing, Gong Ding. He stepped forward with absolute poise, casually adjusting his tie. His sheer confidence was so overwhelming it practically crushed the air around him, sending the crowd below into a frenzy. It's finally his turn. The student council president, and the young master of the Imperial Guild, to a true genius. Meanwhile, Si Chen stood perfectly still, his calm eyes completely unfazed. Outside, the crowd kept whispering. 2 years ago, he was already at D rank, and the highest in our class so far is only low D rank, while the school record is mid D rank. Wonder if he'll break the record this time? Inside the testing chamber, the dormant demon core suddenly twitched, as if sensing a powerful presence. Gong Ding approached, raising his hand while quietly calculating. He only needed to use a fraction of his strength. He would hold back the rest for the graduation combat test to make the biggest splash. Even so, this small portion of his power would be more than enough to secure first place. Outside, the data screen began to flicker wildly, but then, a sudden detail made all the teachers freeze in shock. The color of his potential rating shifted from white to gold, an incredibly rare phenomenon. The screen locked in, displaying a shocking result. Current rank, high D rank, potential, S rank. In an instant, the entire hall erupted as the students cheered like absolute maniacs. An upper D rank was already miles ahead of everyone, but possessing S rank potential? That is practically unheard of. Jiang Di and his crew stood there with their jaws on the floor, completely unable to hide their absolute shock. As expected of the president, the ultimate record breaker, Ma Long cheered, his voice trembling with pure excitement. For Jiangming Academy to produce someone with S-rank potential, they were literally witnessing history. Xiang Zuo grabbed Xiang Yu, laughing and crying all at once in a chaotic mix of despair and envy. Up on the podium, the teachers immediately huddled together. A result like this had to be reported to the higher-ups right away. After all, someone with S-rank potential is an incredibly rare national asset. Gong Ting stepped out of the testing gate to a roaring crowd, a smug grin playing on his lips, clearly thrilled with his performance. Up in the stands, even the official observers couldn't hide their deep satisfaction. A true genius had indeed arrived, but nearby, Ling Wuji slowly shook her head, her eyes locked onto someone else as she whispered with deep intrigue. Honestly, compared to Gong Ting, I am way more interested in seeing what that guy can do. Down below, Si Chen stood perfectly still, his head slightly lowered, completely unfazed by the roaring crowd around him. That was until the speaker crackled to life again. Next examinee, Si Chen. He slowly raised his head, his piercing gaze signaling that the real storm was about to begin. Jiang Di stood nearby, a nasty sneer plastered across his face, staring at Si Chen like he was a total joke. He scoffed, "Hey, loser, you better try your absolute best. Don't go embarrassing our dorm out there." He burst into a mocking laugh, throwing in one last jab. "Man, if you walk out of there with a low E rank, it is going to be hilarious. Seriously, our whole dorm is filled with low-life trash. It is pathetic." He glared at the four of them, spitting out venomous words. "With your pathetic skills, you guys are just going to be a total joke in the upcoming practical exam." Hearing this, Ma Long trembled with pure rage and stammered back. "Just you wait, Si Chen is going to make you eat those words." But Si Chen didn't say a single word. He just silently walked straight into the testing chamber, his face so calm that no one could read what was going on in his head. Xiang Yu stared at his retreating back, a wave of doubt washing over him. Could Si Chen actually pull this off? Inside the testing chamber, Si Chen approached the magic core. Surprisingly, the lifeless orb trembled slightly, as if sensing an ominous presence. Meanwhile, the crowd outside was buzzing with nervous energy, gossiping about the upcoming graduation practical exam. For most of these awakeners, this exam was their one and only shot to get noticed by the major guilds. With teams capped at 10 people and members chosen freely, the winning group would get directly recruited by the prestigious Imperial Guild. Because of this, everyone was desperately trying to form alliances. Jiang Di slung his arm over a classmate's shoulder, bragging loudly. His team had already secured 9 D-rank members, and with Gong Chung joining them, victory was basically guaranteed. He laughed arrogantly. "The strong stand together, while the weak get weeded out. That is just how the world works." Meanwhile, Ma Long was growing more anxious by the second, his eyes glued to the chamber gate. Si Chen had been inside for so long without a single sound. Snickers started breaking out around him, and a few people even turned to leave, assuming Si Chen's test had already ended in a pathetic, silent failure. Jiang Di rolled his eyes in boredom, waving his hand to usher his crew away to find some actual entertainment. But right at that moment, the giant leaderboard overhead suddenly glitched, the numbers spinning wildly before snapping into place. A massive letter D lit up the screen, followed by the words, "High tier." The entire arena fell dead silent for a fraction of a second, and then absolutely exploded. Ma Long jumped up, screaming at the top of his lungs, "High D rank! See? I told you guys!" But before the celebration could truly begin, a cold, mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. "Magic core unstable. Potential calibration error. Retesting required." Inside the chamber, Si Chen stared at the monitor, quickly realizing that his level 10 base power alone was already enough to match a high D rank. Without wasting a second, he triggered a class swap. Crackles of blue lightning surged around him as he transformed into the Zhengxiao King. And when the new results popped up, everyone was left utterly speechless. Mid-C rank. Outside, all the color drained from Jiang Di's face as he stared at the screen, stuttering in absolute disbelief. C rank? What in the actual hell is going on? Even the teachers were completely bewildered. They had never witnessed anything like this in their entire lives. The system's error alarms kept blaring, but this only confirmed Si Chen's theory. If his weakest class was already a solid C rank, then his other 2 forms would easily blow that out of the water. Without a single second of hesitation, he initiated another swap. This time, he unleashed the Purgatory Rakshasa. A suffocating, heavy pressure flooded the chamber, causing the entire testing space to violently tremble. Si Chen clenched his fists, his eyes freezing over with icy determination. "All right, let's see where my absolute limits truly lie." Inside the chamber, the magic core's eye suddenly snapped wide open. It began to shake violently, covered in a cold sweat, as if it were staring at a monster far beyond its capacity to comprehend. In an instant, the sky above pitch blackened, and a colossal vortex formed in the clouds, roaring with lightning as violent, howling winds ripped through the air. It looked like the end of the world was descending right onto the campus. Outside, Jiangdi looked up and shrieked in absolute panic. What the hell is going on? Xiang Yu clasped his hands together, his voice trembling with manic excitement. A heavenly anomaly. Today is definitely going down in history. I think our dorm is about to produce an absolute monster. Over on the monitor, the numbers glitched frantically before shifting once again. A glowing golden S flashed on the screen under the potential category, causing an old professor to instantly scream in absolute shock. Yet another S-rank potential. Even Kung Din couldn't maintain his composure, freezing right where he stood in sheer disbelief. But it didn't stop there. The golden color suddenly blurred, slowly turning into a deep red. Piercing warning alarms began to blare continuously. System error, system error. A flood of the letter S filled the entire screen, finally locking onto a single line that left everyone utterly speechless. Immeasurable potential. Exceeding system limits. Standing right below, Kwang Dich turned completely pale, his eyes practically popping out of his skull in disbelief. Right at that moment, the testing gate shook violently and exploded into pieces. The panicked teachers rushed inside, yelling out, "Hey, are you okay?" But when they saw the scene inside, they froze on the spot. The Lin Lung demon heart lay motionless on the ground, completely lifeless. It was dead. While the other two were still being checked on, Tu Tran had already quietly walked out. His expression was completely calm, as if nothing had happened, with only one thought crossing his mind. Maybe he had gone a bit too far with his power, but in return, he had gained something far more valuable. A system notification popped up clearly. Devour successful. A. Rank, Lin Lung, Demon Heart. His gluttony power had completely absorbed the Demon Heart's abilities. Stepping out of the gate, the bright light shone down on him. Tu Tran's eyes flashed slightly, and his newly acquired ability activated instantly. In his line of sight, the ranks of everyone around him became clearly visible, and his gaze locked onto the head of one specific person. Kung Din, mid-tier C rank. So, he was hiding his true strength too. But to Tu Tran now, that was nothing special. Outside, two teachers quickly rushed to offer an explanation to calm the crowd. The demon heart had likely died of sudden exhaustion. Today's exam had to be put on hold. Tu Tran's test data might have been glitched, and the remaining students would have to retake their tests tomorrow. The moment those words left the teacher's mouth, his three roommates rushed over and pulled him into a tight hug, not caring about what was true or false. In their eyes, Tu Tran was already a true genius, but their joy didn't last long before Huang Dich approached them, his voice dripping with sarcasm. As expected, the machine was broken. A loser like you could never be a C rank with S rank potential. He even loudly blamed Tu Tran, claiming he broke the demon heart and forced everyone to delay their exams. But this time, Tu Tran didn't stay completely silent. Curling his fingers slightly, a faint golden electrical current began to gather in his hand. His gaze turned icy cold as a dangerous thought crossed his mind. Should I just cripple this trash right here? Right then, Kung Din walked over, his expression darkening. He ordered Huang Dich to back off, then turned to Tu Tran with a calm, composed smile. The invitation was extended as if everything was going exactly according to his plan. Join my team. We'll take on the graduation practical exam together, and we'll definitely claim the highest record. Tu Tran stood there, quietly staring straight at him without giving an immediate answer. But his eyes grew incredibly deep, as if he was weighing a decision that would completely reshape the future. Standing behind them, Ma Long couldn't hide his shock, whispering in a low voice, "I can't believe Kung Din is personally inviting Tu Tran to join his team. This is absolutely unprecedented." Meanwhile, Kwang Dich's face turned incredibly sour, his mind in complete disarray. If Tu Tran actually joined, someone would definitely get kicked out. How would he face the rest of the group? The chance to secure first place in the graduation exam was practically guaranteed. Countless people were desperate for a spot on this team and couldn't get in, yet a guy like Tu Tran was about to take it. The more he thought about it, the more furious he became. But in front of Kung Din, he had to force a smile to save face, placing a trembling hand on Tu Tran's shoulder. He reluctantly squeezed out a welcome, but before he could even finish, his hand was violently brushed off. Tu Tran's reply was short and ice cold. "Not interested." That single sentence left the entire area in dead silence. Kwang Dik stood frozen, unable to believe his ears, while even Kung Din frowned slightly, clearly not expecting to be rejected so bluntly. Kwang Ditch's anger instantly flared up as he screamed, "Do you even know what you're turning down? Our team is the strongest in the entire school." But Tu Tran didn't even bother to look back, only tossing a cold reply over his shoulder. "That has nothing to do with me." Then he turned around and walked away. Before leaving, he glanced back at Kwang Ditch, his eyes glowing red with an intense pressure as his voice sank. "You're too noisy. Don't bother me again." His sheer aura sent a shiver down the spines of everyone around them. Ma Long quickly ran after him, leaving a stunned crowd behind. Whispers and gossip immediately broke out everywhere. Tu Tran actually dared to reject Kung Din. He's got some serious guts. That's the student council president. But some people began to speculate. Was he planning to take the #1 spot all by himself? After all, his previous result was a mid-tier C rank, proving he was definitely no ordinary player. Meanwhile, Hang Ta and Hang Hu couldn't stop laughing as they walked, bringing up the ugly expressions on those two guys' faces. Seeing them look like they wanted to tear Tu Tran apart was so satisfying. As for Tu Tran, he remained quiet, completely ignoring the chatter around him. The four of them quickly left the noisy hall. Up on the spectator stands, Nguyen Lung let out a sigh of regret. If those two were on the same team, they might have actually set a brand new record this year. Lin Vu only gave a light smile, her eyes filled with excitement. Precisely because they're not on the same team, it makes it so much more worth watching. This was nothing short of a direct declaration of war. Gong Ting had always looked down on everyone from his high pedestal, and he had never been rejected like this before. This time, his pride had definitely taken a hit. Sure enough, Gong Ting's face was no longer as calm as before, and a subtle coldness flashed in his eyes. Beside him, Jiang Di still couldn't swallow his anger and muttered curses, insisting that it was all just an equipment error. But Gong Ting spoke in a low voice, asking what if it wasn't. Even if the chance was incredibly slim, he would never allow anyone to snatch away his #1 spot. Jiang Di immediately got the message, bowing his head and offering to take care of Si Chen for him, only to be met with a cold question. "Do you really think I'm that petty?" Gong Ting asked, making Jiang Di break out in a cold sweat as he hurriedly denied it. Gong Ting said no more and simply turned to leave, his voice indifferent. "I'm not in the mood today. You guys handle it yourself." But before walking away, he glanced back and left him with a cryptic remark. "Whatever you do has nothing to do with me." Jiang Di stood frozen for a moment, before suddenly bursting into a laugh, having understood. The implication was crystal clear. Gong Ting didn't need to say it out loud for Jiang Di to know exactly what he had to do. Not long after, Jiang Di sat on the stairs listening to Jiang Bai's report that Si Chen had left the campus, heading straight home before even grabbing a bite to eat. Hearing this, Jiang Di stomped hard on the soda can under his foot, his smile turning twisted and distorted. Heaven was truly on his side, because outside of school was the perfect place to make a real move. This time, he didn't plan on just teaching the guy a lesson. Si Chen walked into the trading hall with a calm composure, but his mind was already busy calculating. In his past life, this very place would later become the country's largest resource center, and now, it was going to be the perfect stepping stone for his master plan. Those low-tier sales were just the appetizer. $10,000 wasn't much, but it was enough to solve his immediate needs. But what would truly change the game was the massive greatsword he had just pulled out. At first, Xiao Cheng laughed it off, thinking it was just trash, while Xiao Li kept guessing, thinking it was B tier, or maybe even A tier. But all of their guesses were completely dismissed by a man who had just walked in Qingji. With just a single sentence from him, the entire room froze. It was an S-tier gear, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Xiao Cheng stood dumbfounded, his face turning pale, while Xiao Li widened her eyes, completely unable to believe her ears. S-tier gear was something even the powerhouses of the major guilds would fight tooth and nail for, yet here it was, in the hands of the poorest student from the dorms. Qingji didn't hesitate for a second. He stepped forward and grabbed Si Chen's hand, his attitude doing a complete 180. "Welcome, valued guest. Please follow me to the VIP room." This was no longer a simple transaction. It had escalated to a negotiation between elite resource holders. Si Chen just gave a faint smile. He knew all too well that the big fish had taken the bait. In his past life, Qingji was an incredibly formidable figure. He was the mastermind behind the entire Mithril Guild, controlling a massive resource network, and to quickly access the demon caves and secure entry into restricted areas. Having someone like him on your side was absolutely essential. And now, this very man was willingly bowing to him. Inside Qingji's private office, a cup of hot tea was freshly poured. Chen sat directly across from him. Qingji spoke up. "May I ask, esteemed guest, do you already have plans for this gear?" Chen replied calmly and concisely, 1 million. Qingji asked back in surprise. "Only 1 million? You must know that even A-tier gear sells for millions on the market. An S-tier weapon like this should easily go for tens of millions, and it would trigger a massive bidding war. It's practically priceless." Chen clarified, "I want to use this S-tier gear as collateral for a loan of 1 million. I'll redeem it in 1 month. Qingji was stunned for a moment. Pawnbroking an S-tier weapon? This didn't seem like the mindset of an ordinary student. Clearly, Chen had no intention of selling it. He wanted to keep it for his own future use. This kid was either a wealthy heir keeping a low profile or a true genius. Either way, he was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Chen continued, "Just 1 month. Once it's due, I'll pay back the full amount, along with 10% interest. Deal?" Hearing this, Qingji immediately ordered, "Xiao Li, please step out for a moment." Once the door was closed, he spoke slowly. "If I'm not mistaken, you're a student at the National Awakened University and a senior about to graduate. From what I know, your graduation combat test is scheduled in exactly 1 month, and the grand prize happens to be exactly 1 million. That perfectly matches the amount of your loan." He let out a slight smirk. "In other words, you're absolutely sure you'll take first place." Qingji stood up, his eyes narrowing. If Chen could easily claim the prize money in a month, but was rushing to pawn such a valuable item for cash right now, it meant he was desperate for funds, immediately, perhaps even pushed to the brink. Changing his tone, Qingji offered, "In that case, I can lend you 1.5 million in cash, completely interest-free for the month." He extended his hand. Let's call it a gesture of friendship. Chen was slightly caught off guard by the unexpected offer. Qingji smiled and gave him a wink. "Don't worry. Everything that happened today stays completely confidential. I only hope that in the future, if you have anything to trade, you'll give my guild priority. I promise to offer you the best possible deals." "So, what do you think?" Tu Tran was secretly blown away. To think this guy had figured out his entire situation and exact needs from just a tiny shred of information, and instead of taking advantage of his situation to lowball him, he did the exact opposite, offering even better terms to build a long-term relationship. No wonder he eventually turns the Mithril Exchange into the #1 trading platform in the world. If he wanted to destroy Wrath, he couldn't do it alone. First, he needed to find trustworthy partners to team up with. The moment they finalized the agreement, the atmosphere in the room completely shifted. A magic circle glowed beneath their feet, sealing the deal. Thon Chi held the contract with a satisfied look, announcing that the deal was officially active and the funds had already been transferred. Tu Tran glanced down at his phone, and only truly relaxed when he saw the numbers on his screen. But Thon Chi's curiosity was far from over. His gaze lingered on Tu Tran before he asked directly, "Now that you've pawned such a powerful weapon, what do you plan to use for your graduation exam? If you need help, we can easily hook you up. We've got plenty of B-tier or even A-tier gear." Tu Tran just gave a firm shake of his head, but then, he raised his hand, and with a sudden flash of light, a weapon identical to the first one appeared right in his hand. His casual remark, "I still have another one," made the entire room fall dead, silent for a few seconds before everyone's jaws dropped. Talk about mind-blowing, it was just completely ridiculous. Even Thon Chi couldn't keep his cool anymore. As he walked Tu Tran to the door, he couldn't stop marveling at him. To be this capable at such a young age, this kid was definitely something else. Turning around, he immediately praised Tu Li, even promoting her on the spot for bringing in such a high-profile client. Just when they thought the business was wrapped up, Tu Tran stopped after only a few paces. Remembering something, he turned back and calmly announced that he wanted to buy some more things. Shortly after, he was in a taxi heading out, bound for the long-distance train station in Thuong County. Standing in the middle of the bustling crowd, old memories suddenly came rushing back. In his past life, being broke made survival a constant struggle for him and his sister. Back then, he hadn't awakened his powers yet. With 0 opportunities available, he had to work odd jobs just to scrape by. Their bank account was always practically empty, forcing them to pinch every single penny. He still vividly remembered the day Tu Van received her admission letter, only to quietly crumple it up. It wasn't because she wasn't good enough, but because the academy was too far away, and she refused to be a burden to her brother. Ultimately, she chose to give up on her education entirely. Back in the present, Tu Tran stood in the middle of the station, his heart racing. His sister should have arrived by now. Just as he was about to turn and look for her, a familiar voice called out from behind. "Brother, how many times do I have to tell you? You're supposed to wait at the exit, not the entrance." Tu Van ran up, dragging her suitcase, panting as she scolded him. She was still as energetic as ever, with that same familiar, nagging tone. Tu Tran froze, his eyes widening in complete disbelief. The person he had failed to protect in his past life was now standing right before his eyes. Without saying a word, he rushed forward and pulled her into a tight hug. The sudden embrace left Tu Van completely bewildered, clueless as to what was going on. But for Tu Tran, this was a moment 7 years in the making. A rare, relieved smile spread across his face as he thought, "I finally get to see you again." Tu Van, however, couldn't possibly understand the weight of his emotions. She just thought her brother was being incredibly weird today. Wriggling free, she grumbled and tickled his ribs, forcing Tu Tran to let her go. She tossed her bag to him, teasing him as they walked. "You've been totally spaced out for the past 2 days. Did someone reject you or something?" Tu Tran quickly denied it, but his sister paid no attention and just dragged him toward home. On the way home, Tu Van chattered endlessly about how difficult the upcoming exam was going to be and all the pressure she was under. Tu Tran just listened in silence, his eyes softening as he watched his sister. In his heart, he had only one single thought left. This time, he would never let her suffer or get hurt again. Meanwhile, in a quiet alley, a group from the student council had already gathered. Leading them was none other than Kwang Dich. He stood there with an annoyed look on his face, listening to his lackeys voice their concerns. They warned him that if they went too far, it could cause trouble. But Kwang Dich only sneered. At first, he had only planned to teach him a light lesson, but Tu Tran's smug attitude was something he just couldn't stomach. An E-rank trash at the bottom of the food chain actually dared to act arrogant and talk down to him. Remembering how the kid told him, "You're too noisy, stop bothering me," Kwang Dich gritted his teeth in fury. He immediately ordered his men to beat Tu Tran half to death, even wanting to cripple him so he couldn't take the graduation exam. As the top cloud attribute assassin in the school, he was confident that handling this would be child's play. Meanwhile, Tu Tran was still casually walking home with Tu Van. His little sister couldn't shake the feeling that her brother was acting really strange, not like his usual self at all, even wondering if it was because of the stress from the upcoming exam. She tried to cheer him up, babbling about random things to encourage him, and even brought up what Tu Tran had once said about life's opportunities. She even started humming a little tune, making Tu Tran chuckle as an indescribable warmth welled up inside him. She is incredibly sharp. The moment they reunited, she already noticed a shift in him, completely unaware that their lives have changed forever, and those days of endless struggle are officially over. Right then, Sichen's instincts screamed. A clear, undeniable wave of danger washed over him. He immediately realized they were being followed, and worse, the tale was from the student council. He didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. A cold thought crossed his mind. So, they actually dared to follow me here. Without saying a word, Sichen pulled out a pair of earphones, gently placing them over Si-Yun's ears. Keeping his voice perfectly calm, as if nothing was wrong, he said, "I found a really great song recently, give it a listen." Though slightly surprised, she was quickly swept away by the melody, completely oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Meanwhile, Sichen slowly turned around, his eyes turning ice cold. As the music began to play, a silent, deadly battle officially kicked off. Activating his skill, detailed stats of the thugs in front of him flashed before his eyes. They were no longer just student council members, they were targets. As the melody built up, crackling lightning energy began to surge and swirl around Sichen's body. Memories of his past life flashed through his mind, the agonizing pain of losing his only remaining family, and the miracle of getting her back after his reincarnation. Yet, right now, some bastards dared to threaten the one person he swore to protect. In the blink of an eye, Sichen lunged forward. His very first kick sent one guy flying back, his face completely caved in. The rest didn't even have time to react before panic set in. But Sichen wasn't about to give them a single second to breathe. His relentless strikes were too fast for the naked eye to follow, tearing through them one by one like they were nothing but punching bags. One desperate thug tried to ambush him from behind, but the moment he reached out, Sichen grabbed his arm and snapped it with a sickening crack. Before his scream of agony could even escape his throat, a follow-up punch shattered his face. With the music still blasting, the battle felt like a one-sided slaughter. With every beat drop, Another body hit the floor. Standing in the back, Jiang Di's smug confidence instantly dissolved into pure panic. He couldn't wrap his head around what he was seeing. How could a loser he looked down on be this terrifyingly strong? In mere seconds, his entire gang was left groaning on the dirt. Si Chen slowly walked toward Jiang Di, closing the distance between them step by step. Jiang Di began to stammer, desperately trying to bluff by bragging that he was a peak-tier Cloud Summit assassin, but his trembling voice betrayed his absolute terror. The first punch landed, snapping his head to the side and sending him flying. Before he could even try to stand up, Si Chen was already looming over him. Another brutal punch smashed right into his jaw, disfiguring his face, followed by a ruthless barrage of punches. Every single strike packed devastating power, knocking out his teeth, rolling his eyes back, sending him flying only to be yanked back for more. Finally, Jiang Di was blasted away, crashing hard onto the pavement as dust and debris exploded around him. He lay there, barely clinging to life. Through his blurry vision, he saw Si Chen slowly walking over. He looked like an absolute demon, looking down on him with cold, glowing red eyes as his oppressive voice echoed. "I told you not to mess with me. Do you not understand plain English?" Paralyzed with despair, Jiang Di lay in the dirt, feeling every single bone in his body shattered. His legs were completely numb. Only one terrifying realization filled his mind. The test results from earlier were real. Si Chen was absolutely not a D rank. He trembled, opening his mouth to beg for mercy, but before he could even utter a word, Si Chen cut him off. He coldly ordered him to shut up, threatening to end him right there if he dared to speak another word. That look sent a shiver straight down Jiang Di's spine. For the first time in his life, he knew with absolute certainty that the person standing over him would actually kill him. Overwhelmed by sheer terror, he stared at Si Chen as if he were a monster, unable to comprehend how a mere student could possess such suffocating killing intent. Si Chen leaned down, his freezing gaze locking onto him as every word he spoke pounded into Jiang Di's head like a nail. "Listen to me very carefully. I don't care what you do or how pathetic your lives are, but you will never show your faces in front of me again. And most importantly, never, ever involve my sister." A cold blade lightly grazed the corner of Jiang Di's mouth, a warning carved deep into his flesh. "If I catch any of you slinking around us again, I will personally erase you from this world." Terrified and in agonizing pain, Jiang Di could only nod his head frantically. Si Chen stood up, tossed the knife aside, and turned to walk away, leaving behind a broken, utterly ruined man. A short distance away, the song in Si Yun's earphones was winding down, its melody softening into a hauntingly lonely tune. She stood there in silence, confused as tears began to stream down her face. It was just a song, yet it made her heart ache, as if it had touched a deep, buried memory. She couldn't help but wonder why her brother had felt so distant lately, as if he had survived a lifetime of hardships she knew absolutely nothing about. Without hesitation, she spun around, ready to tease him, but stopped short when she saw Si Chen standing right behind her. In his hands was a beautiful gift box. Wearing a warm, gentle smile, he handed it to her as if nothing had happened and said, "Xiao Yun, this is for you." Her eyes instantly lit up as she opened it. Inside was the latest magic tech pen. She was thrilled, yet completely bewildered. This thing was unbelievably expensive, so she immediately asked where he got the money. But behind Tu Tran's calm smile, his hand, still stained with blood, quietly clenched into a fist. In his heart, there was only one thought. In his past life, he had failed to protect her and failed to save her dreams, but this life would be different. Back home, Tu Van excitedly tested out the pen, each stroke turning into a three-dimensional image floating in the air. She was as thrilled as a kid in a candy store, while Tu Tran slurped his noodles and watched his little sister, wearing a rare smile. To him, as long as she was happy, nothing else mattered. Still, Tu Van couldn't help but worry about the money, but Tu Tran reassured her that the rent had already been taken care of. He made up some excuse about doing business with friends, but it was obviously a clumsy lie. Tu Van looked at her brother, harboring her doubts but choosing not to press further. After all, the smile on his face, something that had vanished for so long, had finally returned. She gently sat down next to him, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said softly, "No matter what happens, don't push yourself too hard." Tu Tran nodded slightly without offering any explanation. Meanwhile, in another place, the atmosphere was completely the opposite. Kwang Dich had been taken for medical treatment, but his condition was extremely critical. Over half of the bones in his body were shattered, and even the best healers couldn't get him back on his feet in time for the exam. Standing in front of the fish tank, Kung Din's eyes darkened as he listened to the report. He never expected Huang Dich to go after Tu Tran on his own, much less that he would end up in such a miserable state. Sitting quietly beside him, Lin Vu spoke up softly. "Looks like he's definitely going to miss the graduation exam this time." Kung Din didn't care in the slightest after hearing the report, only tossing out a cold remark, "Losing a useless weakling only makes our team leaner." Just then, another person approached. It was Kung Huyen, the director of the Career Development Office at the National Awakened University. He looked at Kung Din, his voice dropping low. "It is Tu Tran again. The internal test results confirmed that he actually reached C rank, and he's also the only one in the school with a higher class than you." Hearing this, Kung Din's eyes flickered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. Kung Huyen continued to warn him that this time, his family had invited even the vice president of the alliance to watch the graduation exam, so they absolutely could not let anyone steal his spotlight. He sighed, adding that the vacant spot on the team would have to be filled by his granddaughter. Kung Din chuckled, his voice dropping low but brimming with confidence. "You're overthinking this, uncle. Do they really think I went all out during that test? Just wait." The scene shifts to the dorm. It was late at night, and Tu Tran had just finished showering, his mind still racing with calculations. Today's training was complete, the money issues were temporarily sorted out, and everything was on track. As long as he passed the graduation exam and secured the $1 million reward, he could pay off his loan from Thon Tree. Besides, this connection would be crucial in the future. He lay down on his bed and stared at the ceiling. With only 1 month left, he had to keep leveling up as fast as possible. The moment he closed his eyes, a familiar sound rang out in his head. The system booted up, and his surroundings instantly shifted. Tu Tran materialized in front of a massive gate, the Magic Tower. The previous test results flashed in his mind. His class, once considered the weakest card master, had actually reached C rank, while his Purgatory Rakshasa class, despite being S rank, had yet to show its full potential, with even the system unable to measure its exact power. This meant that his true limit was still a mystery. Tu Tran pulled out a key, and light instantly erupted as the system confirmed it was a triple S rank temporal rift key. Once the key was activated, the heavy gates of the Magic Tower slowly ground open, releasing an ancient aura that made the space tremble. He stepped inside, his gaze calm yet filled with anticipation. Today, he was going to test his absolute limits. But the moment he passed through the barrier, Tu Tran froze in his tracks. The sight before him was completely unexpected. This was no ordinary battle arena. It was a place that felt both strangely familiar and terrifying. He frowned slightly, wondering what on earth this place was. As soon as he crossed the threshold of the Magic Tower, Tu Tran was instantly thrown into a space so vast it sent shivers down his spine. The Starfall Deadlands, where everything felt suffocatingly heavy. In an instant, he felt an invisible force crush down on his entire body, causing his knees to buckle, nearly dropping him to the ground. The gravity here was far from normal. It was nearly 10 times heavier than the outside world, making even the slightest movement feel like dragging a massive boulder. He immediately realized that this environment wasn't meant for a standard trial. It was designed to push a person to their absolute limits. With the gate behind him gone, there was no turning back. The only way out was to defeat the boss of this floor. But under such harsh conditions, his power was suppressed, leaving him with only about 30% of his strength. If he didn't adapt quickly, failure would only be a matter of time. While Tu Tran was still assessing the situation, a sudden surge of killing intent locked onto him, and a massive phantom lion emerged, its savage eyes locking onto him as it roared and lunged, ready to tear its prey to shreds. Without hesitation, he immediately changes his class. His body surges with power, his speed and reflexes visibly skyrocketing. But even so, in this high-gravity environment, every single movement is still visibly sluggish. The beast's pounce is fast and powerful, leaving Tu Tran with barely enough time to dodge to the side, sliding hard across the ground. With no time to waste, he fights back immediately, swinging his electric blade straight at the enemy's neck, but the result stops him dead in his tracks. The strike missed the weak spot, and the paralysis effect failed to trigger. It was a minor mistake, but in this situation, it is extremely dangerous. The Phantasmagoria beast immediately counterattacks, pinning him to the ground with its massive weight, making his breathing turn heavy. That is when Tu Tran realizes that under these conditions, a speed-based class like Assassin is practically useless. Yet, He doesn't panic. His gaze remains chillingly calm. Right as the beast opens its massive jaws to crush his arm, Tu Tran completes his class transfer to Purgatory Rakshasa. In just a single breath, the tables turn. With his strength and stamina surging, he uses raw power to fling the Phantasmagoria beast away. From being completely pinned down, he instantly takes absolute control of the fight. Hammer-like fists begin raining down relentlessly, each strike carrying the crushing gravity of this domain, amplifying the destructive force to a terrifying degree. Tu Tran doesn't give the beast a single second to breathe, pounding it into the dirt with every blow. As he prepares to deliver the finishing blow, he notices something truly shocking. In this high-gravity zone, his striking power has been amplified 60 times. With one final, devastating slam, the ground cracks open, and the Phantasmagoria beast is completely dead. Tu Tran pants heavily, his blood-soaked arms covered in wounds, but his eyes only grow sharper and colder. The system notification rings, confirming he has obtained the Phantasmagoria beast bone, and his experience points skyrocket, raising his level from 10 to 11. However, what makes him frown isn't the hard-fought victory, it is a strange anomaly. There is no sign of devouring, and no portal to the next floor appears. A terrifying silence fills the air, and a chilling thought suddenly flashes through his mind. Is something wrong? Right then, a tiny white crack appears in the air, rapidly expanding into a dimensional portal right behind his back. Tu Tran spins around, his pupils shrinking in horror. Inside the portal is not an exit, but countless opening eyes, all staring directly at him. Something far more terrifying than the boss he just killed is about to step out. Realizing something is terribly wrong, Tu Tran immediately faces the threat, a chilling thought crossing his mind. Could it be that the real boss hasn't even spawned yet? But what answers him isn't just a single enemy, it is a living nightmare. From the rift, a massive tide of Phantasmagoria beasts floods out, their eyes wild with bloodlust, releasing a suffocating wave of killing intent. Tu Tran freezes for a split second. He had to go all out just to kill one of them earlier. But now, it turns out those things are nothing but mob monsters. Before he can even react, the pack of monsters swarms him. One lunges forward, biting down hard on his shoulder, while the others pile on without hesitation, frantically tearing and gnawing at his body like a cornered prey. In this moment of near death, Tu Tran finally understands the true meaning of the words spoken by the Hell Rakshasa. Once that gate opens, what awaits him is not power, but endless suffering. Yet, amid that excruciating pain, his sheer willpower refuses to break, as a cold voice echoes in his head. Endure everything. Conquer everything. Instantly, the vision shatters, and Tu Tran bolts upright in bed, gasping for air, as if he just crawled back from hell. Sweat drenches his shirt, and a lingering terror still haunts his eyes. He touches his body, finding himself completely unharmed, but the agony from the dream was so terrifyingly real, feeling as though his flesh was still being torn apart. Tu Tran clenches his fists, his eyes hardening with determination. There are no shortcuts to becoming strong. No matter how lonely and brutal this road of purgatory gets, he must keep moving forward. And this is only the beginning. Fast forward to another day, Friday, May 20th, Year 7, in the main hall of the National Awakened University. The atmosphere is more lively than ever, with every student gathered to prepare for their final practical combat exam. Up on the stands, Kung Huyen sits back casually, sipping his water, occasionally glancing down as if watching an entertaining show. Down below, the students chatter endlessly. Word on the street is that not only the teachers, but even the top brass of the Guild Alliance are coming to watch the exam in person. Tu Tran sits quietly in a corner, taking it all in. He understands exactly why the rules changed this year. Each team must have at least 5 members, and at least one must be a high-tier E rank. Clearly, this isn't just an exam, it is an open recruitment showcase. When Kung Huyen announces that the rank results have been sent to everyone's smart bands, the entire hall instantly erupts into a frenzy. Each student quickly pulls up their stats, the system screens clearly displaying their name and rank. But then, a shocked cry rings out from Ma Long's side. Something is wrong. Looking at the screen, he freezes in disbelief. Tu Tran, low-tier E rank. Ma Long wasn't the only one. Everyone around them quickly noticed something was seriously off. He had literally just scored a C rank, but now, he had plummeted to the absolute bottom tier. The shocked whispers instantly turned into cruel mockery. Turns out the machine really was broken earlier. How could a loser like him ever get a C rank? The vibe in the room shifted instantly from shock to sheer disgust. Some people even felt secondhand embarrassment for actually considering joining his team. In a high-stakes exam like this, nobody wanted to carry an E-rank deadweight. Meanwhile, in another corner of the room, Gong Ding watched it all play out in silence without saying a word, while Gong Xuan smirked, his eyes flashing with malicious intent. The older man had planned this all along. He thought his nephew was still way too naive, with no real grasp of how to wield power and manipulate people. This time, he was going to teach the kid a lesson. With just a little behind-the-scenes tampering, his opponent wouldn't even get a chance to step onto the stage. The instructor's voice boomed over the speakers, cutting through the noisy crowd, ordering everyone to finalize their teams immediately. But the more he rushed them, the more chaotic the hall became as the crowd swarmed Gong Ding like a hive of angry bees. Some begged to join, others aggressively hyped themselves up, and a few went so far as to grovel, willing to do absolutely anything just to secure a spot on his team. The non-stop sucking up and begging filled the room, making the atmosphere suffocatingly tense. Annoyed by the noise, Gong Ding barked at everyone to shut up, reminding them that his team only had one last spot left. After a frantic scramble, Gong Ding's team was finally set. As the 5 members bumped fists to confirm, a green light flashed, and the system announced their team registration was successful. Meanwhile, in a dark corner of the hall, the vibe was the complete opposite. Xixin's group was still struggling to put a team together. Ma Long let out a heavy sigh, utterly defeated after asking group after group, only to get rejected every single time. Xiang Zuo clutched his head in panic. If they couldn't recruit 5 members, they wouldn't even be allowed to take the graduation exam. What baffled them the most was Xixin's evaluation. Given how insanely strong he had shown himself to be, there was no way he should be stuck at the absolute bottom tier. But the brutal reality stared them in the face. The rules required every team to have at least one member rated at high-tier E rank or above. Since 3 of them from the same dorm were low-tier E ranks, they were basically being completely blackballed. Xixin watched all of this unfold in silence, putting the pieces together. This wasn't some random coincidence. Someone was deliberately stacking the deck against them. Right then, a guy from another team called out to Xiang Zuo, offering him a spot just to fill their roster, while throwing massive shade at Xixin's group. He sneered that staying with these losers was basically academic suicide. They were backed into a corner, and if Xiang Zuo just nodded, he could save himself. But it would mean leaving the other 3 behind to be disqualified from the exam. After a brief hesitation, Xiang Zuo made his choice. He flatly rejected the offer, stating he would never turn his back on his roommates. The recruiters stormed off in a huff, while Ma Long sank deeper into despair. Almost every other team was fully booked, and their chances of finding anyone else were basically zero. Xixin still stood there silently, but the look in his eyes began to shift. He looked up at Gong Xuan, sitting in the spectator stands. The man had the power to change the rules, and since he belonged to the same clan as Gong Ding, the pieces of the puzzle clicked together. The sudden rule changes and the rigged rankings were all a calculated plot to block Xixin's path and protect Gong Ding's top spot. But instead of blowing a fuse, Xixin became terrifyingly calm. If they were going to play dirty right in the open, then he was officially done holding back. He didn't need some rigged exam to prove his power. With that thought, Xixin's aura completely shifted as he completed his class advancement. Before Ma Long could even process what was happening, Xixin stepped forward, his icy glare forcing the surrounding crowd to back away. In this academy, there was an unwritten rule. Anyone could initiate a one-on-one challenge, anytime, anywhere. It was the most brutal, direct way to prove who was truly top dog. Issuing a challenge like this was highly provocative, and most students would tuck their tails and run. But there was one guy who definitely wouldn't back down. Every single eye in the hall locked onto Xixin as the tension reached a boiling point. Gong Ding stood tall, his expression darkening as he realized what Xixin was planning. If Xixin could crush Gong Ding right here in front of everyone, all the rigged ratings and backroom schemes would instantly become a total joke. Xixin let his words hang in the air, his cold gaze sweeping across the crowd, fully prepared to let his fists do the talking. But right when the tension was about to snap, a girl's voice suddenly rang out, shattering the silence. Ling Wu stepped forward with a confident, effortless smile and asked, "Hey, your team is still short on players, right? Count me in." The entire hall erupted in absolute chaos. Nobody expected the vice president herself to voluntarily join the absolute weakest team. She calmly added that she had been a D rank since middle school, so she definitely wouldn't be deadweight. Ma Long and Shang Zuo stood there completely frozen, unable to believe their own ears, while Gong Ding's crew gasped in shock. Even Gong Xuan, watching from above, almost choked on his drink as the entire situation spiraled completely out of control. Whispers instantly flooded the hall. From Lin Vu's mysterious identity to her background as a genius from the Shanghe Kingdom, her sudden arrival sent absolute shockwaves through the crowd. But Kung Huyen quickly composed himself, immediately hiding behind the rules to stop her, arguing that as an exchange student who had never been officially evaluated, Lin Vu had no right to compete. The tension in the room instantly spiked, but right then, Principal Nguyen Lung made a surprise appearance, leaving the entire hall completely stunned. He didn't just show up, he openly championed fairness, smoothly shutting down Kung Huyen's rigid arguments. Though he spoke softly, every single word cut straight to the heart of the matter. If a student were to lose an opportunity over technicalities, the school itself would be the one to blame. Kung Huyen could only shut his mouth, knowing full well that the principal had seen right through his schemes. Ultimately, he was forced to back down and change the rules on the spot, allowing previously ineligible teams to join the competition. The moment the decision was announced, the mood completely flipped. Tu Tran didn't say a word, simply offering a fist bump to his 3 teammates. The system confirmed their team registration, and Hang Ta jumped up in pure joy. Ma Long eagerly threw his arm over his shoulder, even handing the captain role straight to Tu Tran. Up on the stage, Nguyen Lung watched silently with a flicker of interest in his eyes, while Lin Vu just smiled, looking as though everything was going exactly as she had anticipated. With the strongest lineup in school history led by Kung Din on one side and the absolute weakest squad on the other, the contrast was so sharp that everyone was dying to see how it would end. Just then, the system announced that team captains could select their dungeons. But before anyone could even react, a loud confirmation chime echoed through the room. A team had already finalized their pick. Everyone turned to the screen at once, freezing in disbelief, as Tu Tran's team popped up first. Ma Long panicked instantly, rushing over to grab him and begging him to cancel the selection. Hang Ta went pale as well, clutching his shirt and practically screaming, asking if he had any idea what he had just picked. But Tu Tran stood his ground without flinching, his eyes locked onto the monitor, as if this was all part of his master plan. By this point, the graduation exam was no longer just a regular test, it was a literal battlefield. For the very first time, students were forced to form squads and enter real-life dungeons, where one wrong move could cost them everything. The grading was brutal. They had to completely wipe out every single monster to get a perfect score. Leave even one alive, and points would be ruthlessly docked. Defeating the boss would land them massive bonus points, but if they failed, all their hard work would go right down the drain. The time limit added insane pressure. The faster they cleared it, the higher the score, but running even a few minutes late would send their points plummeting. Most importantly, higher-tier dungeons offered massive bonus points, but the danger skyrocketed as well. Making the wrong choice was basically suicide. Normally, teams only dared to pick F-rank or E-rank dungeons at best just to secure a passing grade. In theory, an E-rank dungeon could net them up to 100 points, whereas the point ceiling for F-rank was way lower. But the rewards were what really drove everyone wild. The top-scoring team would get scouted directly by the Imperial Guild. On top of that, the team's MVP would land a management position and 1 million in prize money, completely changing their life overnight. Hearing that, it was easy to see why the entire hall was so incredibly tense. Exam veterans recalled that the highest score in history was only 90 points, set by a genius who had now risen to become the head of a major power. Even an E-rank dungeon was tough enough to require several D-rank fighters working together to clear. Naturally, everyone assumed that if anyone was going to break that record this year, it would definitely be Kung Din's team. But right in the middle of all the chatter, the system suddenly chimed to announce that a team had already picked their dungeon. The speed of it startled everyone, and the name that popped up left them utterly speechless. It was Tu Tran's team. Before anyone could even process it, his selection flashed onto the screen. A D-rank dungeon. The entire hall practically exploded because no student in history had ever dared to touch that level. Some thought he must have misclicked, while others flat out called him insane. His teammates were just as terrified. Ma Long grabbed him, firing rapid questions, while Hang Ta looked ready to pull out right then and there. But Tu Tran remained terrifyingly calm, quietly asserting that he had thought this through very carefully. Before the dust could even settle, another shockwave hit the room. Kung Din's team had also selected a D-rank dungeon. Now, Everyone knew this was no longer just an exam, it was a full-blown clash. Mocking laughter began to ripple through the crowd. Some scoffed that Tu Tran's team would fall apart on its own, since no one in their right mind would follow him on a suicide mission. But then, the unexpected happened. After a tense silence, Ma Long was the first to speak up. "If we've stuck together for 4 years, then we're going all the way this time." Hang Hu nodded as well, since they were already at the bottom of the rankings. It didn't matter what tier they chose, so they might as well go big. Even Hang Ta, though trembling with fear, grit his teeth and agreed. After all, they had to graduate somehow. When the system confirmed that the entire team had agreed, Tu Tran was genuinely caught off guard. He bluntly admitted that he only picked a D-rank dungeon because he wanted to secure the MVP title, even if it meant dragging them all into extreme danger. But the only response they got was pure determination. Once you're on this ship, there's no turning back. Right then, Gong Ting stepped forward, his eyes sharp as daggers, and boldly declared that the MVP title belonged to him. Si Chen turned to lock eyes with him, refusing to back down. As they stood face to face, not a single word was needed to know that this battle was already written in stone. Even onlookers like Ling Yu and the principal began to pay close attention, because on one side stood the absolute strongest team, and on the other, the group deemed the absolute weakest, who had somehow dared to choose the most dangerous path. Time was running out, with only half a month left before the exam. While other teams scrambled to hone their skills and run combat simulations, Si Chen dragged his group to train in what seemed like completely useless drills, running, dodging, reflex tests, and building explosive stamina. At first, everyone was confused and couldn't help but complain, but he made it crystal clear. Once you step into a real dungeon, what kills you isn't a lack of skills, it's fear and a split-second delay in your reactions. Everything you learn in a simulation room is just theory. But when you're staring down a monster you've never seen before, everything falls apart if your body can't adapt instantly. Survival comes down to pure instinct. These exercises aren't meant to look flashy. They're designed to make your body react before your brain can even think. He also spelled out a harsh truth that everyone knew, but no one wanted to admit. Resources and opportunities always go to those born at the top. They'll pay any price to widen the gap between themselves and everyone else. For those with absolutely nothing, the only way forward is to put their lives on the line and force their way up. When his teammates asked what they were supposed to do then, Si Chen gave them a very clear answer: get into the Imperial Guild and break past their current social class. And this graduation exam was their one and only shortcut. With no other choice, he looked at his team and said firmly, "We have to win this time." With only 15 days left before the assessment, Si Chen practically vanished from the face of the earth. He threw himself entirely into the Dream Demon Tower, a place where every passing second pushed him to his absolute limit. Charging through the barren, crystal-filled space, he lunged forward, swinging his blade to slash down the Illusionist, but took a nasty gash across his face in return. Time waited for no one, and every day that passed was bought with blood, sweat, and tears. 10 days before the exam, a memory flashed of Si Chen and his teammates, pushing themselves to run until they collapsed from exhaustion, their legs feeling heavy as lead, yet they still gritted their teeth and pressed on. "Just 5 more laps," someone gasped out. Snapping back to reality, he charged forward once more, slashing his lightning blade down without a single shred of hesitation. Elsewhere, Gong Ting was also training like a madman, swinging his sword with icy precision. 2 different people on 2 different paths, yet both heading toward the exact same clash. 5 days before the exam, a sweat-drenched Si Chen strained his back to lift heavy weights, gritting his teeth as he counted 101, 102. There were no shortcuts, only pushing himself to the absolute limit. 3 days before, Gong Ting's eyes burned with murderous intent, the sword in his grip glowing red-hot like fire, and his aura no longer resembled that of a mere student. 2 days before, a system notification chimed, announcing that Si Chen had reached level 16. His lightning assassin class was visibly enhanced, but to him, that still wasn't enough. 1 day before the exam, his body covered in wounds, he stood there, his eyes terrifyingly cold, as he uttered a single line: "The real war starts now." On June 17th, Year 7, the practical combat exam officially kicked off. In the waiting room, drones buzzed overhead, continuously broadcasting instructions, prompting everyone to check their wristbands and gear as a suffocating tension filled the air. Everyone knew this wasn't just a test, it was the turning point of their entire lives. Outside the main building, High-ranking officials began to arrive one by one, with Principal Yuan Long personally stepping out to greet them. Even the president of the Imperial Guild made an appearance, leaving the students watching from above completely awestruck. But when a man stepped out from the vehicle behind them, the entire area fell dead silent. It was none other than Cavendish, the vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance, a legendary figure most people would never get to see in their entire lives. His presence made everyone realize that catching his eye could instantly rewrite their future. Gong Xuan quickly announced the statistics. 184 students divided into 28 teams. Most had chosen F-rank dungeons for safety, while a few opted for E-rank. But what shocked everyone to their core was that 2 teams had chosen the D-rank dungeon. Even the Alliance officials frowned at the sheer danger. But once a choice was locked in, there was no going back. Live feeds from the dungeons began broadcasting. In the F-rank areas, students were already struggling with minor monsters. In the E-rank zones, even the basic mobs were as strong as low-level bosses, causing many students to panic and beg to forfeit. But all of this was just the opening act. Because inside the D-rank dungeon where Saichen was heading, the real nightmare was about to begin. At the Yunshen summit, the moment the team set foot on the ground, they were blocked by a bat-monkey demon sporting a twisted grin. The sheer malice in its eyes sent a shiver straight down everyone's spines. Saichen instantly recognized it as a Yunjuan-type beast, a species that hunts in packs. They were incredibly fast and extremely lethal when diving down from the sky. And just as he expected, the entire swarm swooped down in the blink of an eye. Screams echoed as the team scrambled to dodge in a split second. Some rolled out of the way, others leapt into the air, while some covered their heads, dodging in pure panic. But strangely, no one took a fatal hit. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, the corpse of a bat-monkey demon slammed hard onto the snow. Then another, and then another. The entire group stood there, completely frozen. In just a single moment, Tu Tran single-handedly took down 3 D-rank monsters. Without even slowing down, he spoke with absolute calm. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut right through the howling wind and the roars of the beasts, clear enough for the entire team to hear. You guys aren't strong enough to handle them yet. Just stay back and focus on keeping yourselves safe. Instantly, sparks of lightning crackled around his body. A cold blue light sliced through the air, and his voice was sharp and resolute, leaving absolutely no room for argument. Leave the rest to me. In an instant, the battlefield descended into utter chaos. Bat-monkey monsters began raining down relentlessly, forcing the rest of the group to desperately dodge and defend themselves, completely on the defensive. As Hang Ta tried to dodge, he stumbled and crashed against the trunk of a tree. He sat there dazed for a few seconds, before a sudden realization hit him. It turned out that from the very beginning, Tu Tran had never expected any backup from them. All he wanted was for them to stand on their own 2 feet and survive. The real fight was never their burden to bear in the first place. Meanwhile, Tu Tran was completely dominating the front lines, single-handedly wiping out the battlefield. His speed, reflexes, and raw power were pushed to their absolute limits. Every swing of his blade was clean, cold, and precise, yet the monsters just kept coming. Wave after wave rushed forward, but he only pressed on, growing more overwhelmingly dominant with every step. It was as if he was crushing the entire area, all by himself. Only now did Hang Ta truly witness the massive gap between them. Before, when Ma Long said Tu Tran was strong, he didn't quite believe it. But seeing it with his own eyes, he realized it wasn't just strong, they were on completely different levels. A guy like him didn't look like a student at all. He looked like a seasoned warrior who had survived countless life-or-death battles. In the middle of the chaos, a bat-monkey monster suddenly lunged straight at Hang Ta. Someone screamed a warning, but there was almost no time to react. Right then, a streak of fire cut through the air. Hang Ta gritted his teeth as his hand burst into a blazing red flame, grabbing the monster's leg with his bare, burning hand. Ma Long immediately caught on and forced himself up amidst the chaos. They couldn't just rely on Tu Tran forever. With those words, he unleashed his frost energy, sending waves of biting cold to freeze and slow down the monster's movements. Hang Hu also charged in, binding the target with thick vines. Even though the beast thrashed and broke free, those few seconds of crowd control were all they needed. "This is it," Hang Ta roared, condensing a blazing red fireball in his palm before hurling it with all his might flameburst bullet. A massive explosion erupted, and the flames swallowed the monster whole. Instantly, the drone system chimed, confirming the kill. All 3 of them collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, but their eyes were burning with pure excitement. For the first time, They had actually taken down a D-rank monster with their own hands. Hangta propped himself up, looking at Tu Tran with a mix of exhaustion and smug pride. See that? You're not the only one who can fight. Tu Tran simply gave a soft smile, keeping his eyes on the path ahead. Well done. Right after, an announcement rang out. All the lesser monsters in the area had been eliminated. In the observation room, Kung Huyen's jaw dropped in disbelief. No way. Those students clearly don't have any real combat experience. Kung Lam remained silent, his eyes darkening as if he was calculating something far more sinister. Meanwhile, Cavendish stood with his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the screen showing Tu Tran. A smirk played on his lips. This kid, interesting. Then his eyes narrowed slightly, as if catching a strange, lingering sense of familiarity. But why? Why does he remind me so much of an old acquaintance? Cavendish tilted his head slightly, and slowly spoke as he stared at the screen. Is his name Tu Tran? Right, I remember now. A simple sentence, yet it made the air in the room instantly freeze. Kung Lam flinched for a split second, while a cold shiver ran down Kung Huyen's spine, his entire body visibly stiffening. Reacting quickly, he hurriedly changed the subject, pointing at the screen with a forced laugh. Look over here, everyone. The other team that chose the D-rank dungeon has already made deep progress. On the screen, a fierce battle was underway. Zis pushed up his glasses, his analytical eyes scanning the footage. With teamwork like that, their style is almost identical to a professional guild team. Cavendish let out a soft murmur of amusement and leaned back, his voice tinged with curiosity. Intriguing. It seems we have plenty of promising prospects this year. Kung Huyen lowered his head, a faint smirk forming on his face, though his thoughts were entirely different. The game has only just begun, he thought. The best is yet to come. Meanwhile, in another sector, the D-rank spore fungus dungeon was erupting in pure chaos. Standing right in the middle of the battlefield was Ngan Lin, playing her instrument alone. Every chord drew in a gloomy aura, blowing the toxic gas right back at the enemy, weakening all of the enemy's strength with her signature skill, Elegy of Decay. Right after, Nyimha raised his hand, channeling a burst of spiritual energy that launched the mushroom monsters into the air, before yelling out to his captain. Kung Din immediately made his move, his sword flashing like lightning. With a few clean slashes, he shredded the spore fungi into absolute dust. As the dust settled, he calmly sheathed his sword. Watching the battlefield dissolve, a realization began to take shape in Gimha's mind. These monsters were exactly like the ones they faced in training, completely predictable. He began to believe that everything had been rigged in their favor from the start. As long as you allied with the right people, the path ahead would be paved with gold. Gongcheng stands nearby, impatiently urging him to go fight the boss already. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Si Chen's team amidst a heavy blizzard on the peak of Mount Yunsan. The wind howls with a bone-chilling cold, and the crushing mana pressure makes it hard to even breathe. Si Chen stands still, his eyes narrowing as he stares ahead, his voice dropping low. So, we really made it to the top of this D-rank dungeon. Right ahead, the frost ape lies flat in the snow, breathing heavily, but still dead set on killing us. Ma Long turns pale and stammers. Is that the final lord? It looks terrifying, Xiang Zuo says, looking just as bad. He gives a forced laugh. Just one hit from that thing is enough to kill me 10 times over. Right at that moment, the beast snaps its eyes open, its blood-red glare sweeping across the frozen landscape. Ma Long screams in panic. It's looking right at us. Without a moment's hesitation, the frost ape charges straight at them like a hurricane. The group instantly scatters in panic, but Si Chen leaps into the air, bringing his foot slamming down on its head. Si Chen wastes no time, delivering a devastating kick that sends the frost ape flying. The second he lands, his body blurs in a streak of golden light, moving so fast it is like he is tearing through space itself. The beast howls in agony, its screams drowned out by the terrifying explosion of power bursting all around it. Sharp, freezing beams like invisible blades slash down repeatedly, ripping its body to shreds before it can even fight back. In the blink of an eye, Si Chen spins around, his weapon plunging straight through the frost ape, ending the battle with chilling efficiency. Xiang Zuo and Ma Long stand frozen in shock, completely unable to believe what just unfolded. Could a D-rank lord really be taken down that fast? A few minutes later, amidst the melting snow and clotted blood, Si Chen stands quietly, inspecting the monster's corpse. The system chimes with a notification. 200 experience points gained. Obtained frost ape, hide ×1. He frowns slightly, a sense of unease creeping in because the rewards are way too meager for a D-rank lord. Just then, a shout rings out from a distance, drawing everyone's attention. Xiangzuo rushes over to a massive tree, its hollow trunk packed with glowing mana crystals. He waves excitedly, his voice shaking with thrill. This has got to be a mid-grade mana crystal hoard. If we take this back, we're set for life. But Si Chen's face instantly pales, and he shouts to stop them. Wait, don't. But it's too late. Someone has already touched the mana crystals. The instant they make contact, a bizarre light explodes and swallows everything whole, as a wave of freezing energy surges out like a tide. With a loud boom, an ice explosion erupts, sealing the entire area in thick, impenetrable ice. The monitor screens instantly go black as warning alarms blare. Si Chen's team has lost signal. In the observation room, Gong Xuan strokes his beard and sneers. Just as expected, they fell right into the trap. High-rank monsters always possess intelligence. Useless trash will always be useless trash in the end. They only drag each other down. This evaluation is as good as over. Cavendish immediately suggests sending in a rescue team, but Yuan Long raises a hand to stop him. With calm eyes, he replies, "Their vitals are still stable. They haven't given up yet. The decision must be left to the candidates." Meanwhile, back inside the dungeon, only Ma Long is left standing amidst the bone-chilling ice, his breath coming in ragged, shivering gasps. Behind him, his teammates are completely frozen solid, but before he can even process the shock, the ground violently trembles, and a massive, grotesque monster slowly manifests in midair, as if it were the true ruler of this place. Instantly, memories from the monster manual flash through Ma Long's mind, an ice-class mage capable of both heavy attacks and crowd control. An entity exceptionally skilled in manipulating ice and snow, with a sadistic nature that loves cornering its prey before slowly crushing them to pieces. The Frostbone King. No doubt about it, it's him. The previous ice explosions were entirely a pre-laid trap. Realizing the terrifying gap in power, Ma Long has only one thought left: he needs to run, to escape this place as fast as possible. But before he can make a run for it, a piercing pain erupts in his leg as blood splatters onto the cold, white snow, bringing him crashing to his knees. His breathing becomes shallow and ragged from the pain. Hovering above, the Frostbone King just watches, letting out bizarre, twisted noises as if mocking its prey. The system warning blares coldly, notifying him of a puncture wound in his left leg and asking if he wants to forfeit the exam. Ma Long grits his teeth through the pain, trying to trigger his magic while firmly declining the forfeit. In his mind, there's only one goal left: he has to save Si Chen. He believes that as long as Si Chen is alive, hope isn't lost. But right after, another ice spike drives straight through his arm, making him scream in agony. His body collapses onto the snow, blood soaking through his clothes. The shadow of the Frostbone King looms closer and closer. His survival watch repeatedly flashes, danger alerts, as his heart rate spikes. The system prompts him to forfeit once more. Ma Long's resolve wavers for a second, but memories of always running away, of being looked down upon, and of being left behind make him grit his teeth. If he keeps cowering in fear, everything they sacrificed to get here will be completely pointless. With a roar that shatters his hesitation, he refuses to stop here, and instantly, his power explodes. Activating his skill, Ma Long throws himself toward the frozen block, sealing Si Chen, completely ignoring the deadly ice spikes breathing down his neck. In that split second of life and death, he screams at the top of his lungs. He channeled all of his willpower into a desperate rescue strike. At that exact moment, the sealing ice exploded as a blinding light ripped through space, and Tu Tran shattered the frost, bursting out from the center of the massive blast. This unexpected sight caused the Icebone King to freeze in shock for a split second. Tu Tran soared over to catch Ma Long, a faint smile playing on his lips. It was as if everything that had just happened was only the warm-up. But Ma Long still worriedly asked him about his condition. Tu Tran simply replied that it was nothing to worry about. But the danger wasn't over yet. The Icebone King began preparing another devastating, apocalyptic attack. Massive frost projectiles gathered together, releasing a pressure so heavy, it felt like the entire space around them was collapsing. Another violent ice explosion erupted. White snow blanketed everything, but amidst the chaos, a colossal pillar of light suddenly burst from Tu Tran's position, shaking the entire battlefield. Ma Long was stunned to realize that Tu Tran's strength was completely off the charts, far exceeding his expectations and not even resembling his original class. Just as he wondered if Tu Tran had acquired a dual class, the system confirmed that the class change process was complete. Amidst the radiating, brilliant light, Tu Tran calmly declared, "This time, your fight ends here." Tu Tran stepped forward into the ruined battlefield, slightly reaching out his hand, his voice cold enough to cut through the air. "I'm sorry. My lack of consideration is what put you guys in danger." The moment those words left his mouth, the energy inside his body began to surge violently, radiating an aura that pressed down like an invisible mountain. He clenched his fists tightly as magic light flared up, but it didn't stop there. Right at that moment, a system announcement rang out. The class transition was complete. Tu Tran, level 16, Purgatory Rakshasa. His gaze sharpened, and his voice dropped. "I'll finish him right now." Ma Long stood behind him, mouth agape, his mind completely blank. Normally, an awakened can only possess one class, but there is an extremely low probability, about 1 in 10 million, for a dual-class user to appear. They are so incredibly rare that there are fewer than 10 of them in the entire world. Once they reveal themselves, they become the ultimate prize for every major guild. Yet Tu Tran didn't just stop at having a dual class. His original power was a lightning element assassin, and then he unlocked the Slaying Moon record skill. Now, he was even evolving into a whole new tier of power. Ma Long felt like his brain was about to explode. 3 classes? On the battlefield, heavenly thunder crashed down, and the ground ruptured as if being torn to shreds. Tu Tran vanished from the ground in an instant, streaking into the sky like a bolt of lightning to close the distance on the Icebone King. Ma Long could only watch in awe, feeling that the suffocating pressure the monster once exerted was now being utterly crushed under Tu Tran's sheer aura. With a single downward slash, lightning exploded. The Icebone King took a direct hit, its entire body convulsing from the terrifying electric current. By this time, Tu Tran had entered his Star Warrior state, the threefold tribulation, pushing his power to the absolute limit. With one more strike, the Icebone King's body was torn apart, dissolving right in mid-air, without leaving a single trace. Tu Tran lowered his blade to the ground, putting a decisive end to the battle. Immediately, the system sent a notification. Experience points increased by 5,000, level raised to 17, and the Frostbone spike acquired. Ma Long walked over, looked at the remaining skull of the Icebone King, and let out a laugh. "Leave it to you, man. A C-rank boss monster taken out with just one slash." Tu Tran didn't reply right away. He just glanced into the distance, his voice turning serious. "Those two are still frozen. Do you have enough strength left?" Hearing that, Ma Long froze for a beat before frantically running off in a panic, yelling as he ran, "Shoot, I almost forgot about those two." As the battlefield quieted down, Tu Tran stood there with glowing eyes, raising his hand to absorb the residual energy from the Icebone King's corpse. A progress bar appeared as the power inside his body continued to solidify. He muttered softly to himself, "Cloud Mage. This is the first time I've devoured a new class outside of a dream realm." His eyes drifted over to the camera equipment that had been frozen earlier. He frowned slightly, then let out a sigh of relief. It seemed his secret hadn't been exposed to the audience. There was still time, and achieving a perfect score was definitely not going to be an issue. Right after that, a beam of light descended from above, notifying him of an increase in class mastery. Tu Tran chuckled softly. "Oh, another star." Meanwhile, in another highly dangerous D-rank dungeon area, the Kung Din Guild team was locked in a brutal struggle. Ngiemha screamed while desperately defending. "Is this really just a D-rank boss? How is it this strong?" Another member panted heavily, swinging his weapon. "Its defense is insane. We can't break through at all." The monster roared, rampaging across the battlefield, completely unfazed even when struck by lightning. Ngiemha was thrown back, gritting his teeth. "There was no mention of this thing during training. How are we supposed to fight it?" Someone screamed, "We have to rely on the captain." Outside the battlefield, reports came in that the Kung Din Guild leader was still gathering power. But then, the space suddenly trembled, and a calm voice echoed, "That's enough." Tu Tran had arrived. Without a moment's hesitation, he charged straight onto the battlefield, driving his blade through the massive monster's body. With cold eyes, he roared, "Rupture!" The blade erupted with power, completely tearing through the beast's entire defense line. A massive explosion erupts, engulfing the entire area in blinding light. Down below, the crowd erupts into endless cheers. "Our guild leader is so strong. He is absolutely insane." The system's voice rings out, announcing that the royal team has cleared the D-rank dungeon in just 35 minutes. The entire team erupts in joy. We cleared a D-rank dungeon in just half an hour. That is a perfect score. The atmosphere explodes with victorious cheers as a new record is written in the Academy's history. Gongcheng walks by with a cold smirk, his voice dripping with contempt as he speaks to the crowd that just escaped the dungeon. Even the lowest F-rank dungeon usually takes at least an hour to clear. Anyone who got out in that amount of time, besides us, must be a bunch of useless losers who gave up. Someone clutches their head, muttering in sheer panic. Monsters, please, don't kill me. Someone nearby quickly pulls them back to reassure them. Calm down, we are out of the dungeon. A schoolgirl is still shaking uncontrollably, her face pale. Those monsters were so terrifying. Just then, Wen Wei glares toward the group standing in the distance, a dangerous smirk creeping onto his face. Gongcheng follows his gaze and sneers. Si Chen? Looks like those losers got eliminated too. Suddenly, he blurts out, "Wait, is that Si Chen?" He turns to his group with a mocking laugh. "What is the matter? Couldn't even finish the exam? Weren't you acting so tough before?" Right then, someone calls out, "Gongcheng, get back here. The vice president has arrived. Let's go greet him." From a distance, Cavendish slowly approaches, clapping his hands gently with a smile that carries an overwhelming aura. Magnificent. Today, I truly witnessed an outstanding performance. The atmosphere instantly grows tense as their eyes meet. Gongcheng thinks to himself, this is the man who stands at the very peak of world power. And yet, he is actually walking toward them. But then, Cavendish brushes past them with cold indifference, as if they are completely beneath his notice. He walks straight up to Si Chen, his voice filled with deep admiration. I never imagined someone could clear a B-rank dungeon in just 21 minutes. Even established, professional guilds might not pull that off. It is truly impressive. Gongcheng stands there frozen in shock, the color completely draining from his face. What? 21 minutes? Those four didn't just clear a B-rank dungeon, but they did it that fast? Behind them, Si Chen's teammates. Chen immediately called out, "Greetings, Vice Chairman." Si Chen, however, calmly observed Cavendish, quickly analyzing the man in his mind. The Vice Chairman of the World Guild Alliance, a man whose power is second only to the world's absolute peak. Why is he showing up here in person? Cavendish smiled. You must be Si Chen, right? This trip was definitely worth my time. And the young master of the Gong family performed exceptionally well too. Leading a team to clear a D-class dungeon at such a young age is truly impressive. The younger generation is not to be underestimated. Gong Xuan bowed slightly. You flatter us, Vice Chairman. Cavendish glanced briefly at Gong Ting before turning around, his voice calm. It's getting late. I should be on my way. The surrounding crowd began to whisper in excitement. The principal really struck gold this time, finding two rare geniuses at once. Gong Xuan took a deep breath and announced the results. Since both teams achieved a perfect score, you will share first place. Every single member is now eligible to join the Imperial Guild. Ma Long immediately cheered in excitement. The Imperial Guild? Are we really getting in? The crowd erupted into wild cheers. It felt as though stepping through this door would completely change their lives forever. Gong Xuan continued. In addition, the two captains, Si Chen and Gong Ting, will be appointed to key management positions, and they will split a 1-to-million reward. Si Chen's face darkened slightly. He quickly calculated in his head 500,000 was still not enough. He was still short by 500,000. Just then, Gong Ting stepped forward, his eyes sharp and cold. There can only be one first-place winner. I want another match to settle this once and for all. The crowd instantly broke into murmurs. Gong Xuan frowned. What are you talking about? The results are already decided. There's no need for this. But Si Chen stepped forward, his voice calm yet resolute. If I win, the entire 1 million goes to me. Gong Xuan nearly spat his water out. Gong Ting narrowed his eyes, not hesitating for a single second. If you can beat me, you can have it all. Standing nearby, Cavendish chuckled with amusement. Interesting. It seems the show isn't over yet. Si Chen took a step forward, his sharp gaze locking onto his opponent. Name the challenge. How are we doing this? Qingzi adjusted his glasses, his voice carrying a hint of admiration, but even more so, calculation. I only expected you to get first place, but I never imagined you would break the record and get a perfect score. Right now, the entire media is covering your story. It seems I made an excellent choice with my angel investment. He paused for a moment to emphasize his next words. That 1,500,000? You don't have to pay it back. Consider it my investment in you, Si Chen. But Si Chen replied immediately, his voice cold and decisive. No, I'm paying it back. He looked straight at Qingji and continued, I came here today to tell you two things. First, I need to extend the repayment deadline by 1 week. Because I tied for first place in this exam, my prize money was cut by 500,000 from what I expected. His gaze didn't waver for a second. 1 week from now, I will have a match to settle the score with the other first-place winner in the wild dungeon outside the school. Qingzi gasped in shock. What? You two students want to enter a wild dungeon outside the school? His voice immediately turned serious. Without proper guild supervision and training, doing that is way too dangerous. Si Chen calmly interrupted. Don't worry. If I win that match, I'll get the remaining 500,000. Plus, I can gather resources inside the dungeon, which will be more than enough to cover the interest for another week. Qingji fell silent and adjusted his glasses, his eyes narrowing as if analyzing some bizarre phenomenon. This kid was entering a wild dungeon without a single shred of fear, and yet his mind was filled with nothing but debt and interest rates. He was truly not normal. Si Chen took a sip of water, his voice remaining flat. Besides, I brought you something else, something far more important than that money. As soon as those words left his mouth, the air in the room grew heavy. Qingji stared at him, his expression shifting from calm to doubt, then slowly turning into sheer disbelief. Si Chen continued to speak, each word dragging him deeper into a whirlpool of undeniable information. Ultimately, Qingji couldn't help but jump out of his seat, his eyes wide with shock. Meanwhile, a different scene unfolded on the afternoon of June 17th at Qingshui High School in Shangcheng County. Siyun stretched and let out a sigh of relief. Finally, the exams are over. Behind her, classmates began gossiping about the test, some complaining they didn't even understand the questions, while others tried to guess the answers. Siyun pulled out her phone, her gaze turning somber. Next up was summer break, but then she froze. Today was also the day of her brother's graduation exam. Memories from 4 years ago came rushing back. Back then, Si Chen had happily told her that his elemental potential test was positive. He had been accepted into the National Awakened University and could become an awakener, join a major guild, make a fortune, and change their lives. More importantly, he could search for clues about their parents' disappearance. Back then, Si Yun was so proud, always believing her brother would become the strongest. But as time went on, one by one, everyone around them awakened, except for Si Chen, who showed no signs of awakening at all. With each passing year, that silence grew heavier, but he never let his frustration show in front of his little sister. Just then, a classmate ran up to her. Si Yun, have you heard the news? 2 graduating geniuses got perfect scores this year, and they were even personally received by the vice chairman of the Guild Alliance. Our entire county is about to become famous. Si Yun stood frozen, a deep sense of disappointment welling up inside her. All her friends had become geniuses, while her own brother. She spun around and ran off, leaving his calls behind her. She had only one thought on her mind. She had to get home and cook a delicious meal to comfort her brother. On the night of June 17th, in their small rented room, the dinner table was packed with dishes, steam rising hot from the food. Si Chen looked around in surprise. Xiao Yun, when did you cook all of this? On the TV screen, the evening news was broadcasting. This morning, the National Awakened University completed its graduation practical evaluation. The vice chairman of the Guild Alliance, Cavendish, was personally in attendance. Si Yun lowered her head and spoke in a tiny voice. Her brother was indeed just trying to put on a brave face. The news broadcast continued, mentioning that this year's exam had produced 2 co-champions who scored perfect marks. One of them was Si Chen. Si Yun froze and whipped her head toward the screen, stammering out, Si Chen. A perfect score. At the exact same time, in another place, a cold voice echoed in the darkness. I set the stage, and I invited the entire audience, yet it was completely ruined. The voice paused for a beat, then became incredibly sharp. Not winning is losing to an absolute nobody. The voice dropped, carrying a bone-chilling intent to kill. From now on, you no longer have the right to make your own choices. I have already arranged everything for the practical battle in 1 week. A low chuckle echoed. So tyrannical. If you can't get it done, I'll do it for you. No matter what it takes, first place must belong to our family. The screen continued to broadcast the news, and Cavendish's voice rang out. He commented that Si Chen's performance was highly impressive and expressed his hope that Dongxin Kingdom would continue to nurture more outstanding talents. Si Yun was completely stunned. Huh? Is the brother Si Chen they just mentioned on TV really you? Si Chen, while eating, asked in confusion, "What is it?" Suddenly, her spoon slipped and shattered on the floor. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled across the high sky. Panic surged in her heart. Big brother, her actual biological brother, didn't just lead his team to a perfect score in the graduation exam, but was even praised by the vice chairman of the Guild Alliance. The room fell dead silent, and the atmosphere became incredibly awkward. Then, tears of joy welled up in Si Yun's eyes. Her silly brother. She looked at him with immense pride. He was truly extraordinary. Across the table, Si Chen had a completely blank look on his face. On the night of June 17th, Year 7, Cavendish remarked while eating that the Wagyu specialty of Dongxin Kingdom was indeed the best. He asked the person sitting across from him, "How are things progressing on your end?" Yan reported, "Here is all the gathered data. No traces have been left over the past year, so they might have detected us." Cavendish replied, "You've worked hard. Eat first." Yan continued, "There's one more thing. I recently identified a suspicious target who interacted with you not long ago. His power growth is abnormally rapid. Inside the first floor of the Demon Tower, Si Chen grinded for over half a month, virtually wiping out all the monsters on this floor. He had completely adapted to the 10 times gravity environment. After the graduation battle, his Lightning Assassin class had reached 1 star, boosting his proficiency. None of his 4 current classes had hit their limits yet. That star was added to his speed stat, bringing his current speed to 740, a 4-fold increase. But even so, he still couldn't land a hit on the Dungeon Lord. Before him stood a pack of beasts exuding a fierce aura. They roared and lunged forward. Si Chen counterattacked with the Lightning Assassin skill, Divine Flash. A bolt of lightning shot out, forcing them back. The Lion King boss acted extremely strangely. Every time he attacked, it would vanish and reappear next to a lioness at the furthest position. They constantly adjusted their formation but always maintained the same structure. 2 melee fighters, 2 scouts, and the Lion King always standing furthest away. It wasn't fighting directly. Si Chen frowned. "What is its class?" A leopard pounced at him, only to be heavily wounded by a lightning strike, but their tactical loop continued. Every time he attacked a target, it would swap places and vanish, dragging him into a battle of attrition. Si Chen panted, asking himself, "Are they messing with me?" Suddenly he stopped. "Wait a minute. Why do I have to use speed to deal with this?" A thought flashed in his mind. "I don't need the assassin class anymore." His gaze turned cold as he prepared to switch classes. Space itself trembled, and his aura shifted completely. The transition to Ice Mage is complete. Frozen Skeleton Sovereign. Si Chen's body glowed brilliantly as a cold, robotic voice echoed through the space. Class transition in progress. Inside, he had only one thought. "If you guys don't want to face me head-on, then why should I play by your rules?" Si Chen's eyes snapped open, a tidal wave of murderous intent erupting from him. "Why shouldn't I just use magic to crush all of you?" The system screen flashed repeatedly. Class transition complete. Si Chen's Frozen Skeleton Sovereign status panel immediately popped up before his eyes, clearly showing his stats as a Frost Mage. Strength, speed, stamina, element, luck, and spirit were all displayed at once. Si Chen's body floated gently in midair, surrounded by a spreading icy aura. Immediately after, a violent blizzard erupted, forcing the beasts to scatter instantly to avoid it. The entire battlefield fell into chaos as power rained down from above like a natural disaster. Si Chen analyzed the situation as he channeled his magic. Close combat mages are weaker, head-on, but extremely powerful at long range, crowd control, and attrition. The pack of beasts had barely turned around before beams of icy light rained down from the sky, cutting off their escape. The ground was completely covered in a freezing magic, leaving absolutely no room to move. A few beasts tried to break through the chaos and escape, but when they turned back, the entire area had already been sealed shut. They were all forced right into Tu Tran's attack range. Panic-stricken roars echoed everywhere. Standing high above, Tu Tran quietly gathered his magic in his hands. As an ice-burst cloud mage, he coldly calculated in his mind. Once they were locked within this range, there was absolutely no way out. The beasts panicked, their eyes filled with pure terror, but it was already too late. As Tu Tran delivered the final blow, the entire space was swallowed by a blinding flash of ice and snow, completely wiping out all visibility. The pack of beasts that had been so ferocious just moments ago was now completely frozen in place, utterly motionless. A mechanical voice chimed in again. Tu Tran, Purgatory Rakshasa class change completed. Tu Tran's cold voice echoed across the battlefield as the fight on the first floor of the magic tower came to an end. His eyes flashed with a long-suppressed emotion that finally found its release here. Immediately after, he activated his strongest form, Star Warrior, Triple Calamity Heavy General, Super Heavy version. A massive shockwave swept across the entire battlefield. When the light cleared, nothing but desolate ruins remained on the ground. The bodies of the beasts gradually crumbled, vanishing into the freezing cold mist like an eternal winter. Tu Tran touched down on the ground, returning to his normal state as a spiritual aura enveloped him. His status displayed: Tu Tran, level 24. But something else caught his attention. The beasts' corpses could still be devoured. Raising his hand, light began to gather as his gaze darkened. Tell me, what exactly is your class? As the smoke cleared, the monster's soul was dragged from its body, gradually being subdued by Tu Tran. An info panel popped up. Phantom, Spirit, Beastmaster King, Star Whispering Beast. Tu Tran frowned slightly. A Beastmaster. This was the first time he had ever seen this kind of class, but he quickly understood. No wonder it didn't fight directly. It turned out all its power came from contracted beasts. The system's spatial analysis made Tu Tran fall into deep thought. It had the ability to traverse space, along with the power to force beast contracts, though that required absolute suppression. He muttered to himself, to tame something like this, it looks like I'll have to use much harsher methods. The surrounding space began to shift, and the exit of the first floor of the magic tower gradually became clearer. Tu Tran looked around. Is this what the first floor actually looked like? Why is it so ruined? Suddenly, a spatial rift tore open right in front of him. The portal leading to the second floor appeared, and a fierce, menacing pair of eyes flashed within the crack. Tu Tran snapped his head around and spotted a small creature hiding among the leftover bones, watching him warily. He narrowed his eyes. Is there still one left? Scanning it closely, he realized something was off. The Beastmaster King was dead, yet this little guy hadn't vanished, proving it wasn't a main contracted beast. There were spiritual chains bound around it, as if it had been held prisoner. Imprisoned? Without a second thought, Tu Tran lunged forward, lightning enveloping his entire body. The little lion froze, completely dazed, but instead of attacking, Tu Tran simply shattered the chains with ease. He said calmly, "Go on, you're free now." His gaze softened slightly. Its home was probably gone too. His voice grew quiet. "I know how that feels, but at least you're alive. Now, I have to keep moving." Right then, a system notification chimed. Spontaneous beast contract request detected. Tu Tran paused and turned back to look at the little lion. The system continued. The Leo King requests to form a contract with you. Do you accept? Tu Tran's voice rang out, deep but clear. Do you want to follow me? The cub let out a soft growl, its tone filled with determination. A silent answer that needed no words. Tu Tran stared at it for a moment, then spoke slowly. From here on out, I'm going to conquer this magic tower, floor by floor. The higher we go, the more vicious the monsters get. You could get hurt, or even die. Have you really thought this through? The cub immediately responded with a fierce, unwavering spirit, showing zero hesitation. Tu Tran closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. His voice grew calmer. I got it. With a look of resolve, he accepted the contract. The system's voice chimed instantly. Leo King contract complete. Passive skill activated. A moment later, Tu Tran let out a soft laugh. All right, then let's go together. But while I'm fighting, you've got to protect yourself, okay? Immediately after, he stepped into a space glowing with a fiery red. Tu Tran quickly sensed that something was wrong. The pressure in this area was suffocating, as if merely existing here would burn you to ashes. He frowned. It's so hot. It feels like I could melt at any second. He scanned his surroundings. What on earth is on this floor? Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted, completely taking away his vision. Tu Tran instinctively turned away, but in that very instant, a massive hole suddenly gaped open in his body. His eyes widened in shock, completely unable to process what was happening. The next second, Tu Tran's consciousness was abruptly pulled back. He woke up in his own room. No battle, no resistance. Only the lingering feeling of being instantly wiped out in the blink of an eye. Tu Tran narrowed his eyes. What kind of insane power was that? What on earth is that monster on the second floor? Right then, Tu Van's voice drifted in from outside. Come out and eat breakfast, bro. On the table, A hearty meal was already fully prepared. Sitting down, Tu Tran said, "Wow, breakfast today is quite a feast." While packing her things, Tu Van reminded him, "Remember to wash the dishes in the sink when you're done, and hang the laundry out to dry in half an hour." Puzzled, Tu Tran asked, "Xiaovan, it's summer break. Where are you going?" Turning around with a smile, Tu Van replied, "I'm heading to my part-time job. Since my big brother is so amazing, I don't want to be left behind. Besides, staying at home all day is boring anyway." With that, she waved, "I'm leaving now. Don't forget the dishes and the laundry." Tu Tran watched her leave for a long time before he finally started cleaning up. In his heart, he thought, Xiaovan has always been like this, stubborn yet incredibly resilient. Even though she's still so young, she always strives to be independent. But at home, it actually feels like she's the one taking care of me. Once everything at school is wrapped up, I'll have to deal with the explosive Demon King. I'll have less and less time to spend with her. Out of everyone, she's the one I worry about the most. Suddenly, Tu Tran paused, his eyes lighting up. Right. He closed his eyes and thought, maybe I can actually do that. A split second later, a dimensional rift tore open behind him. A little lion cub tumbled out of it and onto the floor. Tu Tran stood frozen. He could actually summon his contracted beast out of the magic tower? Before he could even process it, the little cub began running wild around the room, making an absolute mess of everything. Looking at the cub, Tu Tran thought to himself, if that's the case, when I'm not around, I can leave Leo by Xiaovan's side. That way, if any danger approaches, I'll be able to sense it immediately. Xiaovan has always loved cats and dogs, so she'll probably accept a little lion cub. Just then, the doorbell rang. Tu Tran slowly got up, a wave of hesitation washing over him. Will she really be okay with this? As twilight began to drape over the city, a security camera inside a certain house was suddenly shattered. A man, drenched in blood, trembled violently. "No, please, stay back." But his screams were instantly cut short by a brutal attack. His eyes widened in sheer terror, reflecting nothing but the monstrous figure looming over him. Meanwhile, in another dark corner of the city, another victim had already been targeted. The scene shifts to Tu Van walking on her way home. She let out a tired sigh, relieved to finally be off work. Selling bubble tea was seriously hectic. Standing on her feet all day was exhausting. She muttered softly to herself, "I wonder if Big Brother will like this flavor." As her small figure walked alone down the long, empty road, Tu Van suddenly froze, a sudden wave of dread washing over her. She turned around, and at that very moment, a voice called out from behind her. "You're finally here." From the shadows, Daham spoke up. "You're finally back. I've been waiting here for you for so long, Xiaovan. Last time at school, you were in such a rush that you blew off my invitation for a date. But don't you worry, because tonight I've booked the entire top floor of the Tufong Tower just for us." With her head lowered, Tu Van coldly asked, "How do you even know I live around here?" He replied with smug confidence, "Well, my dad is the director of the #1 hospital. After all, a little connection like this is nothing." Tu Van turned to walk away. "We belong to different worlds. Don't ever come looking for me again." But in that instant, Daham reached out and grabbed her arm, his voice flaring with anger. "Hey, do you have any idea how much effort it takes to book an entire floor of the Tufong Tower? On top of that, I've invited a ton of friends. If you don't show up, you're making me look like an idiot." Tu Van replied with pure annoyance. "And why on earth should I care about your reputation? Besides, don't you know how creepy it is to stalk someone right outside their own house?" His tone turned aggressive and thuggish. "Creepy? Who do you think you are? Just because I'm chasing you, you think you're hot stuff?" Daham sneered threateningly. "Keep this up, and I swear I can ruin you in a matter of minutes." But before he could finish, Tu Van put all her strength into a punch right to his face, drawing blood. Furious, she snapped, "You should go get yourself checked out at your daddy's hospital. Don't you dare mess with me again. You completely ruined my day." When night fell, only the light from their home remained brightly lit. Tu Van snuggled the little lion cub, squealing in excitement. "Oh my gosh, this little magic beast is so adorable." "Where did you get him, big brother?" Tu Tran explained. "His name is Leo. He's yours to raise from now on." She beamed with joy. "Can I really keep a lion cub?" "Wait, I thought only fully grown lions had manes, right? Leo is still so tiny, so why is his fur already so long? Well, whatever. Tomorrow, I'm going to get his magic beast license and register little Leo under our household." He smiled warmly, feeling incredibly relieved. Looks like Xiaovan really loves Leo. Now I don't have to worry about things at home anymore. Right at that moment, the phone in Tu Tran's hand suddenly rang. He pulled it out and stared at the screen, a faint smirk appearing on his face as he read the message. Looking at the notification, he said happily, "The application is finally approved. Now my plans can proceed smoothly. First step, ace the makeup evaluation exam in 6 days." 6 days later, on June 24th, 2021, at 3:10 p.m., the makeup evaluation exam commenced at the outskirts of the green light forest. Kung Haiyan cleared his throat to make an announcement. "Ahem, listen up, both of you taking the makeup exam. I'll now briefly explain the evaluation process. After careful consideration, the school has decided that this makeup exam will take place inside the wild dungeon within this green light forest. Based on our device scans, this wild dungeon is classified as a D class. As agreed upon earlier, both of you will be tested together inside the same dungeon. The environment inside a wild dungeon is completely uncharted. The risks here are far greater than anything the school uses for student evaluations. Because of that, 3 high-ranking guild members from Dongxin State are being sent to act as the evaluation team. They will follow the 2 examinees into the dungeon to protect them while grading their performance in real time. The evaluators are Yan from the Imperial Guild, Tai Yu from the Sacred Eye Guild, and finally, Sato Yuta from the Silver Wind Guild. He emphasized that the candidates' final grades will be decided entirely by these judges. Hearing this, Gong Lin smirked to himself. He needed those 3 judges to play their parts perfectly and make sure everything went down without leaving a trace. Meanwhile, someone nearby asked, "Vice President, didn't your trip to Sindong State end 2 days ago? Why are you still here?" "I still have some business today," Cavendish replied calmly. "What could be more interesting than what is happening right here?" The screen showed the faces of Si Chen and Gong Ding as he continued. "It has been years since we last saw a duel between true geniuses. This is going to be quite a show." Right then, Gong Xuan raised his hand high. "I declare that the National Academy of Awakened, practical graduation exam for class 2157, individual makeup exam for Si Chen and Gong Ding, officially begins now." With that, both of them stepped into the barrier. Si Chen passed through the magical gateway separating the 2 realms. His figure looked tiny in the vast open space. Both Gong Ding and Si Chen cautiously scanned their surroundings. Tai Yu spoke up, "Withered trees everywhere. Looks like a plant-type dungeon." Right at that moment, a strange light suddenly flashed in front of Si Chen. Si Chen stared at it in disbelief, his eyes widening. The system screen popped up, warning him of a highly dangerous beast. He realized this was the first time his demon core had ever issued a warning. But then, a system chime rang out, and the warning suddenly vanished. Could there really be a higher rank monster hiding inside a D-rank dungeon? Under the shadow of an ancient tree, a thick mist swirled. Gong Ding took the lead, with Si Chen close behind. Tai Yu remarked on how dense the fog was, while Sato warned them to stay highly alert and keep their eyes glued to the examinees. Suddenly, a bizarre creature emerged from behind them. It was a toxic cage ant. Gong Ding drew his sword in a flash and lunged forward like the wind. Sato nodded in approval, noting that Gong Ding's reaction time was incredibly sharp. But beasts in a wild dungeon are a different breed compared to the ones at school. They are far more vicious and ruthless. The beast spat out a stream of corrosive venom, but Gong Ding's counterattack was brutally precise. His sheer speed left everyone speechless, and within seconds, the toxic cage ant was pinned to the ground. Gong Ding's blade glowed with light as he aimed the tip straight at the beast's core. For his final move, he unleashed the ruinous blade burst. The 3 evaluators watched the battle unfold from a high vantage point. Checking his timer, Tai Yu commented. He engaged the moment the beast appeared, while perfectly countering its ranged attacks. Combat reflexes, 10 points. Yan chimed in. He quickly identified and severed the beast's venom gland, completely neutralizing its threat. Battle tactics, 10 points. Sato added. And he didn't hesitate to deliver the finishing blow. Execution power, 10 points. Sato continued his praise, his movement, control, and execution. Everything was as precise as a surgeon's scalpel. Considering he was facing a D-rank beast in a wild dungeon, for a student to remain this calm and decisive is truly outstanding. He then glanced over at the other candidate, his tone turning critical. As for Si Chen, however, he didn't even react when the beast showed up. He's just wandering around. His performance is completely unacceptable. Down below, though, Gong Ding remained dead, silent. The screen cut to a shot of Si Chen. Cavendish asked Yuan Lung, "What do you think Si Chen is looking for?" He replied, "My guess is, he's looking for." Meanwhile, Si Chen's boot sank into the mud. Yuan Lung watched him closely and concluded, "The fastest way to score points." Suddenly, sparks began to crackle around Si Chen. "Found it," he muttered, slamming his power straight into the earth. A massive explosion ripped through the ground, catching everyone off guard. Countless beasts were launched into the air by the sheer force of Si Chen's impact. Taiyu gasped in shock. He just blasted a monster nest open. Is he insane? Sato's jaw dropped. Those are D-rank beasts. Doing something that reckless is going to get us all killed. Gong Ding was equally stunned. Don't tell me he's planning to. Si Chen pivoted on his heel, sweeping his foot across the ground. He unleashed a surge of devastating energy, screaming, "Divine Flash!" The blinding power instantly tore through the surrounding beasts. They were brutally battered by the blast. He dragged them in and ripped them to pieces in a heartbeat. With one final, decisive strike, Si Chen ended the fight. One by one, the beasts crashed dead onto the ground. Sato couldn't believe his eyes, pushing up his glasses in sheer disbelief. What on earth did he just do? Sato stammered. Didn't his file say he was only E-rank? Yet he can wipe out a horde of D-rank beasts like they are nothing? This is completely off the charts, Yan spoke up. Well, how should we grade this? There is absolutely no way we can give this kid a low score. Sato gritted his teeth, desperate for an excuse. Well, what if we argue that his actions were too reckless, and his moves were too basic? Gong Ting suddenly called out from the other side. Si Chen. Seeing this, the crowd burst into laughter. The old man was absolutely right. He was thrilled. The assessment had barely begun, and they were already getting such a thrilling showdown. How exciting! I wonder how Gong Ting will react next. A hand clenched into a tight, angry fist. The screen they were watching suddenly began to blur, eventually showing a total loss of signal. Yuan Long muttered, "Seriously, what's wrong with the signal now?" The scene shifts elsewhere, 16 hours outside the demon cave. Alarms blared as abnormal signals flashed across the bright red screen, throwing Gongshuan into a panic. "What?" someone screamed. "What is going on with this demon cave?" A glowing blue space opened up, leaving them completely bewildered. The entrance had vanished. Inside, Si Chen was still intensely focused on his task, his eyes suddenly widening as he froze. "This is," Si Chen concluded, "the roar of the demon king of wrath." 16 hours outside the demon cave, Gongshuan shrieked that the entrance had vanished. The scientist replied that they still didn't know what was happening, as the equipment suddenly flagged an abnormal signal. He then panicked and yelled to request backup from the higher-ups. Could something have happened inside the demon cave? That terrifying scene left everyone completely frozen, and even Gong Ting fell dead. Silent for a long time due to the sudden turn of events, Taiyu asked, "Hey, did you guys hear that?" Someone replied, "I think there's some kind of noise." They gasped as a sound echoed. Si Chen immediately recognized it. This was the roar of the demon king of wrath. He was deeply confused. Why on earth would the roar of wrath appear here? Wasn't he supposed to appear 3 years later? Sirens blared continuously, warning of a highly dangerous demonic beast. His eyes narrowed as his demon heart triggered another warning. Strange magical runes began to glow on the ground, and something was lurking right behind them. Eerie, bone-chilling sounds echoed endlessly throughout the gloomy space. Sato yelled warily, "What the hell is that in the thick mist?" The blurry figure gradually became clearer and clearer. A monster with eyes burning like fire emerged from the shadows. It grinned, letting out a terrifying raspy laugh. "Humans, you fell right into my trap." Shocked, Sato swung his fist backward. This damn monster could actually talk. Outraged, he stood his ground and began hurling curses at it. A demonic beast that can speak human language must be at least high-tier C-rank. How could something like this be inside a D-rank demon cave? Sato took a leap and jumped down. A monster of this level was far too dangerous for the candidates. He stood defensively in front of Gong Ting and Si Chen. "Quick, get behind me." But at that exact moment, a deep wound suddenly slashed across Sato's wrist. As the shadow flashed past him, his arm was completely severed. The gruesome sight left Taiyu and Yan utterly horrified. Having done that, the monster declared, "Every single one of you." Next, its razor-sharp claws pierced straight through Gong Ting's body. It growled with cold certainty, "We'll die right here." Caught completely off guard, Gong Ting grimaced in agonizing pain. But then, Gong Ting resolutely drew his sword to fight back, catching the monster slightly off guard and making it pause. He then spun around and kicked the monster hard, sending it skidding backward across the ground to gain some distance. Gong Ting suddenly said, "Si Chen, this boss attacked me first." He emphasized, "According to the boss priority rule, it belongs to me and me alone. Don't you dare interfere." Those words made Si Chen pause for a brief second, and his gaze instantly turned deadly. The system screen suddenly flashed before him. Mid-tier C rank. Si Chen glanced at the monster, seeing its rank on the screen. High-tier C rank. Yan leaped down, shouting, "Gong Ting, you need medical attention immediately." Taiyu added, "I suggest we suspend the assessment and retreat right now. This boss is way too dangerous for you." But Gong Ting channeled his energy into the wound, flatly refusing. "No." Si Chen closely watched his movements. He immediately understood. Is he actually using extreme fire heat to cauterize the wound and stop the bleeding? Gong Ting grit his teeth and muttered, "I reject your suggestion." He then loudly declared that this showdown was far from over. The monster opposite him lunged forward without a shred of fear, and both sides clashed furiously, matching each other blow for blow. Outside, Wu Kei spoke up. "We've seen cases where a demon cave's entrance disappeared before. That means there's a highly intelligent demonic beast inside." He calmly analyzed. "It will actively open the entrance, wait for humans to walk in, and then seal the exit to trap them all." Hearing this, the person next to him asked anxiously, "Then what do we do? Can't we reopen the entrance?" "Gong Ting is still trapped inside," Wu Kuei replied. "There is only one way to reopen the exit." His voice carried a heavy tone. "The people inside must slay the demon cave's boss." Gong Xuan sighed. "A D-rank demon cave should only have a C-rank boss at most. And since their average strength is around C-rank, thank goodness, defeating the boss shouldn't be an issue." Wu Kuei objected. "No. That D-rank rating is nothing but a disguise used by the boss," he explained. "According to my observations, this demon cave is highly likely the true culprit behind the mysterious disappearances of the awakeners we've been investigating for so long." Those words sent shivers down Gong Xuan's spine. This place was actually a B-rank demon cave. Wu Kuei stood tall, his voice heavy with warning. "It is extremely dangerous." The fierce beast charges forward, launching a brutal attack on everyone. Its strikes are so powerful and decisive that even the strongest warriors are pushed into a tight spot. Gripping his sword, Gong Ding backs away, his face tightening with immense stress as the beast unleashes a terrifying, blood-curdling roar. Suddenly, it brings its massive claws crashing down, but luckily, his quick reflexes allow him to leap out of the way just in time. The claw slams deep into the ground and gets stuck. Hovering above, Gong Ding sneers. "You finally left yourself wide open." With a single, swift slash, he slays the beast, sending its head rolling across the cold ground. Everyone freezes in disbelief at the sudden turn of events, and Taiyu gasps, "I can't believe Gong Ding actually defeated the Dungeon Lord all on his own." "Gong Ding's strength is truly not to be underestimated," says Yan, who is currently treating Sato, before asking, "How is it? Have you got your feeling back?" He replies, "Thanks to your timely treatment, I am good." Suddenly, Sato's wristwatch lets out a sharp warning beep. He frowns in confusion. What is going on? My bracelet has completely lost its connection to the outside world. Yan chimes in. Mine too. Taiyu realizes that all signals have been cut off, and even their navigation system is malfunctioning. Sato then notices that the camera robot has stopped working as well. Gong Ding, his face covered in fresh wounds, suddenly falls into deep thought. Behind him, the beast's carcass begins to secrete a thick, slimy fluid. Suddenly, it lunges at his unguarded back, but before it can land a hit, it is instantly sliced into 100 pieces. Si Chen strikes decisively, earning 2,000 experience points. Gong Ding is utterly shocked, stammering, I literally cut its head off. How is it still moving? He explains, that monster wasn't the Dungeon Lord. It has been hypnotized from the very beginning, which is why it can still move even after death. We need to get out of this dungeon right now. Otherwise, you guys might be the next ones to get brainwashed. He immediately asks in curiosity, How? How do you know that? While Sato yells, what kind of nonsense are you spitting? At most, there should only be a single C-rank lord in this dungeon, and this monster was at least a high C-rank. How could it not be the lord? Suddenly, Si Chen freezes as the system blares continuous warnings, detecting a highly dangerous monster. A thick fog rumbles out, engulfing the entire area. Tai Yu is the first to be swallowed by the massive wave of energy. Next, Ivan and Sato breathe in the scent, instantly losing their minds. Si-chen's eyes narrow in intense tension. Si-chen realizes it is too late. He recognizes this sound wave all too well. It is hauntingly familiar. He recalls his past life, remembering how Wrath used this exact sound wave. Back then, Si-chen was cradling Si-yun's body in the pouring rain. Si-chen now understands how Wrath managed to hypnotize and slaughter countless ordinary people across the globe. He stands there, watching everyone present shuffle forward like puppets. They mindlessly march ahead, their bodies completely stripped of their conscious will. Si-chen concludes that the lord of this dungeon is definitely connected to Wrath. Ultimately, he decides to follow them, thinking, "It's about time we finally met." The crowd slowly disappears into the pitch-black tunnel. With each of Si-chen's steps, the system's warning alarms blare violently. The unsettling scenery before him is filled with bizarre and grotesque creatures. Si-chen glances over at the rotting skeletons left behind inside the egg nests. The sound echoing in his ears is just like Wrath's. The sound waves used for hypnosis are always wavelength A. To counter Wrath, I've already prepared a wavelength B frequency that can cancel it out. None of these guys have any defense against hypnosis. They could die at any second. I have to find and eliminate the dungeon lord as fast as possible. At that very moment, an eerie voice echoes out. Crimson. The voice sounds savage and mystical as it whispers, "Fresh crimson." Si-chen glares straight ahead with a cold gaze, hearing the dungeon lord mutter, "A body." The scene flashes back to the past. A young Gong Ding is clutching a piece of firewood, forced to fight. His small body is exhausted after barely surviving a brutal brawl. Back then, Gong Lin only said coldly, "Very well. You won again today." His voice was indifferent as he addressed the 8-year-old Gong Ding. Gong Lin then pointed to the other side and ordered, "Since you won, go upstairs and eat." He then sneered mockingly at 8-year-old Gong Cheng, who was trembling below. "As for the loser, you kneel here all night." As night falls, Gong Cheng is still kneeling, his stomach growling loudly. Gong Ding sneaks over and holds out a piece of bread, saying, "Here, eat this." Startled, Gong Cheng looks up and whispers, "But brother, if father finds out, you'll get it again." Gong Ding's eyes are resolute as he replies, "Cut the crap and just eat." The scene cuts to Gong Ding being beaten so brutally that blood spits from his mouth, his battered body trembling from countless injuries. Gong Lin says coldly, "Do you know why our Gong family holds the status we have today? It's because your father is always the victor. Only the winner gets to make the rules." He emphasizes, "And as for you boys, you exist only to obey mine." Back then, Gong Ding grit his teeth and asked, "If I beat you, does that mean I get to make the rules?" In that moment, Gong Lin let out a mocking laugh. A second later, the sword shattered into pieces, clattering onto the floor. Clutching his aching body and coughing violently, he asked, "The one I challenged was you. Why?" Gong Ding screamed. "Why did you let the Monarch Guild step in?" He smirked and replied, "My strength doesn't just come from my own power. It also includes the authority I hold. The rules of the human world aren't as simple as you think, but there is one thing that's absolute." Gong Lin clenched his fist, declaring, "And that is winning. How you do it doesn't matter, the result is all that counts. As my son, you must always be at the top, even if you have to throw away your family, your responsibilities, your ideals, or anything else. You must win. Winning is the only reason for your existence in this world." Back then, he asked himself, was winning really the only reason for him to exist? Back in reality, Si-chen's figure looked so small, standing in the middle of all that chaos. He thought to himself, "This feels like rage. The sound waves used for hypnosis are all wave A. To counter this rage, I've already prepared a wave B frequency that can cancel it out. The others don't have any defenses against hypnosis right now and could lose their lives at any moment. I need to deal with this dungeon boss quickly." Sparks of lightning began to crackle from Si-chen's hand. But right at that moment, Gong Ding stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. Holding his wound, he whispered, "Wait, Si-chen. I don't know how you're avoiding the hypnosis." Blood was dripping heavily from Gong Ding's body onto the floor. Struggling to speak, he said, "But I used my own way to stay conscious. Listen to me. If you show yourself and fight now, everyone will be in danger." Sweat poured down Gong Ding's face. "Do you see that pile of eggs? If we disturb them, even without the boss, we'll have to face at least dozens of rank C monsters. We'll definitely die." The boss disguised this place as a low-level dungeon just to lure in awakeners and drain them dry. Narrowing his eyes, he added, "It will probably try to get close to us on its own. I suggest we stay hidden for now, wait until the boss gets close, and then take it down together." Si Chen turned away. "I didn't expect you to think things through so well. But that plan isn't going to work. This boss doesn't even need to make a move. With just a single thought, it can control the hypnotized victims. Look, Sato is already holding his magic blade to his own throat." Next was Tai Yu, pointing a gun at his own head, and finally Ivan, choking himself with his own hands. Fortunately, Si Chen reacted quickly, rushing over to knock them all unconscious. The boss's expression shifted as it sensed something was off. It slowly spoke. Something else was put in the food. Suddenly, the boss roared, "You bastards!" Its monster minions instantly shed their outer shells, revealing their true forms. A swarm of mantis soldiers moved out on its command. "Kill them!" The horde of monsters began closing in on Si Chen and Gong Ding. Gong Ding spoke up, "Looks like we have to go with our backup plan." Drawing his sword, he said, "Si Chen, do me a favor. Get the three of them out of the dungeon. I'll stay behind and hold off these monsters." His words caught Si Chen off guard. Gong Ding looked determined. "Even if I can't beat them, I can at least buy you some time." As the monsters charged fiercely from the opposite side, he yelled, "I was the one who proposed this extra exam in the first place, putting everyone in danger." As the two forces collided, sparks flew everywhere. Gong Ding's blade dragged along the ground, leaving a deep gash. Struggling, he gasped, "This started with me, so I should be the one to end it." Behind him, Si Chen's footsteps slowly approached. Si Chen gave a faint smile. "I guess I misjudged you, but you weren't the only one who agreed to this extra exam." Radiating a powerful, murderous aura, Si Chen stepped in front of Gong Ding to protect him from the horde. "I'm in this too." Turning his gaze toward the dungeon boss, Si Chen's eyes flared with determination as he declared, "This boss is mine to handle." From behind, Gong Ding tried to stop him. "No, Si Chen, we can't win this. I can feel it. This boss's power is far beyond ours. It's at least rank B, maybe even rank A. You have to take them and leave right now. It's our only option." Si Chen replied, "This boss is indeed unusual, but the dungeon gate has already closed. If it hadn't, the Imperial Guild would have sent reinforcements by now." Gong Ding gasped in shock. "What? The gate is closed?" Si Chen's eyes flashed with a cold blue light. A question mark appeared above its head, making him wonder, if this boss's rank really was rank A, then its combat power surely wouldn't be any lower than the Phantom Spirit King from that tower's dungeon. The minion monsters are rushing at Tu Tran, but he quickly uses his own body as a shield. Suddenly, another beast launches a surprise attack from afar. Seeing this, Kung Din immediately screams, "Watch out!" The two join forces and fight back together, but the monster horde only grows more ferocious. Kung Din says anxiously, "This is bad. Facing a swarm this size, sooner or later we're going to get." Suddenly, Tu Tran raises his hand high, summoning a massive lightning storm. He unleashes a devastating ultimate move, sending countless lightning-charged blades raining down on the monsters once more. With just that single attack, Tu Tran wipes out a massive chunk of their forces. Without missing a beat, he immediately charges forward to take on Team Than. The blood and light unleashed by Tu Tran completely consume the battlefield. Kung Din's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. How is this even possible? An assassin's raw strength stat is incredibly low, making a direct head-on assault extremely difficult. And yet, every single one of his strikes targets their weak points with absolute precision. Tu Tran's moves are incredibly swift and decisive. He is completely stunned as Tu Tran uses sheer speed and technique to make up for his lack of raw power. Kung Din's pupils dilate in shock. His speed right now. Watching that dizzying movement, Kung Din concludes that his speed is at least A rank. Kung Din's hand unconsciously tightens around his sword. With Tu Tran radiating such intense bloodlust, they might actually stand a chance of winning. In the darkness, the Overlord's eyes gleam amidst low growls, and it suddenly speaks in a deep, menacing voice. The beast is channeling its limitless energy, buffing the physical strength of its minions. This sudden move causes Tu Tran to freeze for a split second. The Overlord's voice booms with urgency. "Shred him to pieces. Now." In that instant, his body is enveloped in a brilliant light. Tu Tran leaps high into the air, dodging the monster's strike. He retaliates with a barrage of powerful slashes. Meanwhile, Kung Din is channeling his own power to support Tu Tran, silently cheering him on. "You've got this, Tu Tran." Tu Tran's body surges with an ever-growing power, and his movement speed becomes even faster. As Tu Tran dashes past, the monster snaps at his heels. He spins around, driving his sword deep into its flesh. The area is completely engulfed in the blinding light of Tu Tran's strikes. The beast growls in absolute fury at the sight. Tu Tran unleashes another strike, triggering a massive explosion. He skids to a halt, carving a long trench in the ground. Tu Tran analyzes the situation. These buffed monsters have stats that are almost B rank, and their outer shells are incredibly tough. I can't easily target their vital points. I need to find a way to break through their armor. Suddenly, Kung Din shouts from behind, "Thank you, Tu Tran." His sudden call startles Tu Tran. "You've bought me more than enough time." At 5:30 p.m., inside the rented room, Truk Dong arrives with some food. "I'm so sorry. I had to grab some drinks, so I'm a bit late." Tu Van smiles and replies, "No worries. My brother isn't back yet." Truk Dong is surprised. "Your brother still isn't home? Does he know you passed the Art Academy exam yet?" The young girl replies, "Not yet. But I did tell him that I have something really important to share today. He might be a little late, so maybe we should have a bite first." Tu Van picks up a food container and says, "Wait, when did we run out of garlic sauce?" Truk Dong, "Wait here for a bit. Leo and I will run out and grab a new bottle. I'll also pick up some snacks on the way so we can celebrate properly." She agrees. "All right." The scene shifts to the girl shopping at the supermarket. Tu Van looks inside her backpack and praises him. "You're such a good boy, Leo." She notes that he's being super quiet and peaceful inside the bag. She nuzzles her face against him. "So good. I'll buy you some treats this time, okay?" Behind Tu Van, a group of suspicious men is quietly tailing her. One of them confirms, "Yeah, I've got eyes on the girl." He holds a photo of Tu Van in his hand. "Do we move in?" The voice on the other end orders, "Don't rush. Tail her first, and handle it once she's out of camera range." Van Vi agrees. "You got it." At that exact moment, Tu Van suddenly quickens her pace. The men behind her notice and speed up as well. She mutters to herself, "These guys have been tailing me since I left the supermarket. What on earth do they want?" Their faces are twisted with malice and thuggish intent. Leo reacts aggressively, and she realizes, "You sense the danger too, Leo?" Tu Van zips her backpack shut, instructing, "Stay hidden for now." Her eyes turn cold as she glances back. "Looks like we're going to have to take a risk." Meanwhile, Tu Tran analyzes, "These buffed monsters all have stats close to B rank, and their carapaces are incredibly hard. I can't easily land a blow on their critical weak points. I have to find a way to shred their armor." Suddenly, Kung Din lets out a loud shout, "Thank you, Tu Tran." His words startle him. "You've bought me more than enough time." Kung Din roars, "This is my ultimate killing move. Even if you're an A-rank boss, you won't even have a scrap left of you." The flames he unleashes rapidly engulf the monsters. A shockwave is released, rippling through the air. The intense power he unleashes violently sweeps across the entire area. Finally, a colossal explosion erupts, shaking the very foundations of the space. Just as it seemed like everything was over, Gong Ting's knees buckled. Panting heavily, his exhausted body could barely keep going as he propped himself up with his sword. Gong Ting's vision began to blur. Staring at the terrifying scene before him, he muttered, believing this was finally the end. But suddenly, the Lord's booming voice rang out. "Is this seriously all you've got?" That voice immediately caught the attention of both Si Chen and Gong Ting, before the monster delivered a final, mocking sneer, calling humanity nothing but useless trash. Gong Ting was left in absolute shock. He had poured every ounce of his strength into that single strike, yet the beast didn't have a single scratch on it. Meanwhile, Si Chen suddenly picked up on something. He quickly analyzed the situation and realized that right before the blow landed, the monster had absorbed all of the demonic willow's power to form an incredibly dense shield. Gong Ting lowered his gaze in despair and muttered, "Are we really going to die here?" Suddenly, Si Chen spoke up, "Hey Gong Ting, let's make a deal. First place in this match goes to you, but the 1 million prize money is mine." Si Chen gripped his weapon tightly and added, "There's just one condition. You can't tell a single soul about what is about to happen next." Gong Ting gasped in shock, suddenly realizing that Si Chen was a dual-class user. Suddenly, the souls of the monsters drifted into the air. Their life force was completely drained, converging into a single point as Si Chen absorbed every last drop to trigger his void return. His body erupted with a blinding surge of light that completely blocked out their vision, leaving Gong Ting unable to hide his utter disbelief. The Lord Monster froze in its tracks, staring intently at him. Si Chen's lips slowly parted, as if he was about to speak. He declared, "Like I said, I'll handle this, Lord Boss." The atmosphere grew incredibly tense and eerie, matching his bone-chilling voice. Next, a massive surge of magic erupted, completely flooding the domain. Gong Ting covered his ears in agony as that annoying hypnosis attack started up again, but Si Chen remained terrifyingly calm and unbothered. The Lord grew terrified upon seeing his form, its voice trembling with panic as it screamed, "How are you immune to my hypnosis?" The beast was rapidly losing its mind. It snarled, "You must die." Infuriated, the Lord unleashed its devastating hellish soundwave attack. Si Chen casually walked straight into the thick fog, while down below, Gong Ting was doing everything he could just to hold on. The Lord's body erupted with violent bursts of light. Si Chen grit his teeth as smoke billowed around him, his eyes flashing with a sharp glare. Harnessing incredible strength in his legs, he charged straight forward. The Lord was so startled by the sudden approach that it froze in its tracks. Its voice filled with panic as it screamed, "How is this possible? Why aren't you taking any damage?" In a desperate move, the Lord summoned its beast, sending a massive serpent lunging directly at him. But Si Chen's aura only grew more powerful by the second. With a single slash of his sword, he sent the beast flying 100 meters away. The giant serpent crashed to the ground in agony, blood spraying everywhere. Right then, two more beasts lunged straight at him. Si Chen immediately took his stance, ready to face them head-on. In the blink of an eye, he executed a flawless strike, finishing them both off instantly. The Lord watched in utter disbelief as its sanity began to slip away. "This makes no sense. My defense is supposed to be absolute." Si Chen leaped high into the air, gripping his sword with both hands, and scoffed. "Is that so?" Currently in his void return state, his power was at its absolute peak. He shattered the Lord's defensive barrier with a single blow, sending the fragments flying. The Lord trembled in fear, sweat dripping down its face. Seeing this, Gong Ting gasped. "No way." He shattered the Lord's barrier in a single blow. Gong Ting couldn't help but wonder, "Si Chen, just who on earth are you?" He then activated his Star Warrior skill, Triple Phase Heavy Tribulation, in hypergravity mode. The Lord's body was slammed violently into the dirt, triggering a massive explosion. Thick smoke billowed outward, completely obscuring their vision. The Lord lay defeated on the ground, hissing in bitter denial. "No, I refuse to believe this." Si Chen stepped forward, his voice ice-cold. "Tell me, what is your connection to Wrath?" Its eyes widened in absolute shock. "How do you know about the Monarch of Wrath?" Si Chen's brow furrowed as he commanded, "Spit it out, now." The Lord's voice shook as it said, "Since I serve him, how could I not do everything in my power to help break his seal?" Si Chen was taken aback. Breaking the seal? Could someone have actually sealed him? Suddenly, the Lord burst into wild, hysterical laughter as its body slowly began to dissolve. "Just you wait. The Monarch of Wrath will eventually return to this land. He will lead his demon army once again, and slaughter every single one of you useless humans." With those final words, it disintegrated, leaving behind nothing but a faint streak of light. A glowing ember drifted gently in the air before flying straight into Si Chen's hand, who immediately began to devour it. The system notified him that the devouring of the Illusionist's soul was complete. Instantly, his entire body erupted with a brilliant glow, boosting Si Chen to level 25. He fell into deep thought. It seemed Wrath didn't actually wait 3 years to appear. He was already here in the human world. But for some reason, he ended up getting sealed. What on earth happened in this timeline that I don't know about? Just then, Si Chen's attention was drawn to Gong Ting. Clutching his wounds, Gong Ting gasped, "I never would have guessed that you were actually a dual-class user. I admit it, you're far stronger than me. You won this match. I'll make sure everything that happened here today remains a secret." As soon as the words left his mouth, Gong Ting coughed up a large splash of blood. He collapsed against the wall, coughing uncontrollably as his body gave out. Tu Tran stepped up to remind them, "The boss is down. The dungeon exit should be open by now. Hang in there a little longer. The guild's raid team is about to arrive." Suddenly, his eyes glowed with an intense light, a massive surge of power channeling directly into Tu Tran's eyes. Right in front of him, a faint, blurry figure appeared. That was the moment Tu Tran froze. Tu Van, the shadowy figure looming over her, was dripping with pure malice, while she could only clutch Leo close, trembling in terror. On June 24th, 2007, at 5:50 in the afternoon, Tu Van was walking down the street. Tu Van felt extremely uneasy. These guys had been tailing her ever since she stepped out of the supermarket. What on earth did they want? Two pairs of eyes locked onto her from behind, while Leo, inside Tu Van, growled defensively on high alert. She whispered, "Do you feel the danger too?" Leo whimpered in response. Tu Van gently pushed his head down. "Hide for now. Looks like we're about to have a little adventure." She reminded herself of the golden rule. If you're being followed by strangers, head straight for a crowd. At this time of day, the restaurant street was always packed and bustling. Tu Van carefully slipped into the crowd, using the people as cover, but her stalker aggressively shoved bystanders aside, shouting, "Out of the way!" She quickly came up with a plan. Taking advantage of a moment when they weren't paying attention, Tu Van slipped away and vanished into thin air. Tran Vu looked around in shock. Where did she go? We lost her. Meanwhile, Tu Van picked up her pace, searching for a place to hide. She glanced back and let out a sigh of relief. "I think I lost them." But her relief was cut short when she suddenly bumped into someone standing right in front of her. Van Vu sneered, "I've been waiting here forever." Terrified, she screamed, "Who on earth are you people? How do you know where I live?" Tran Vu walked up from behind, chuckling, "Well, look at that. The little brat actually knows how to run." Tu Van didn't look back. She just bolted again. Suddenly, a blast of ice shot forward, freezing her feet solid. Trapped, she took a hard fall to the ground. He stepped closer. "Tired of running, little girl?" As she looked up at him in terror, he smirked. "Then why don't you take a little rest?" Tran Vu reached out with a sleazy grin. "Come on, play with me for a bit." She desperately scrambled backward and let out a piercing scream. Right at that moment, a massive paw slammed into his face, sending Tran Vu flying through the air. Seeing this, Van Vu glared at her with murderous eyes. Meanwhile, Leo's massive paw slammed onto the ground. The beast stood protectively in front of Tu Van. Even she was completely stunned by his sudden transformation. Staring at his massive new form, Tu Van gasped in disbelief. "Leo?" Tran Vu struggled to his feet, yelling, "Where the hell did this giant lion come from? The brat who hired us never said we'd have to deal with a monster like this." Leo let out a ferocious roar, trying to back them off. Sun Gok stepped forward and unleashed a blast of lightning. The strike sent Leo flying, forcing him back into his tiny, original form. He crashed hard onto the ground and blacked out. Horrified, Tu Van rushed over to his side. "Leo!" She clutched his small body in her arms, crying out, "Leo, wake up! What's wrong?" Van Vu scoffed, "And here I thought it was some big, bad B-rank beast." Right then, thick vines started sprouting from beneath the ground. He slowly walked toward her, mocking. Turns out he couldn't even last 10 seconds. The vines began wrapping tightly around Tu Van. Trembling with fear, she screamed, "Stay away from me!" Van Vu grunted in annoyance. "Stop wasting my time." Cold sweat poured down her face. With a sadistic grin, Van Vu pressured her. "Are you going to take it off yourself, or do I have to do it for you?" Tu Van's eyes widened in sheer terror as a sudden, bright, purple light filled the area. Out of nowhere, Tu Tran appeared and sent Van Vu flying with a single blow. His lackeys watched in horror as Van Vu crashed violently into the wall, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. Tu Tran turned around and said softly, "I'm so sorry, Tu Van. I got held up and came late. Are you and Leo okay?" Sangok gritted her teeth and snarled. "Where the hell did this kid pop up from?" Tu Van quickly cried out, "Brother, I don't know how they tracked us down, but they're all awakened. What are we going to do?" Tu Tran turned back to her with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'm here now." At that moment, Van Vu gripped the broken wall, his body dripping with raw, murderous intent. "I was careless just now. You little brat, you've officially crossed the line. I'm going to take your heads back to him and demand triple the price." Tu Tran stepped forward, telling his sister, "Stay behind me and don't move. I'll take care of this trash in no time." The scene shifts to a past memory, where a boy was pinned to the ground and brutally beaten. Thien Thien barked, "Still won't submit, huh? A worthless parasite like you." Beat him within an inch of his life. Just then, a young Tu Van appeared, holding a wooden stick. Her voice trembled with fear as she shouted, "Stop it! Let my brother go!" He turned around with a smirk. "Look at this. The little parasite actually wants to save her brother." A young, bruised Tu Tran screamed, "Don't you dare touch her. You promised me you'd never touch Tu Van." Thien Thien shrugged. "So what if I did? I lied. Today, I'm going to teach this arrogant little cousin of mine a lesson." She has no one to blame but herself for sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. Hearing those words, Tu Tran lost his mind. He blindly reached out, grabbed a brick lying next to him, and smashed it directly into the guy, pinning him down. The bully turned around in surprise, only to see Tu Tran charging at him like a wild animal, brick raised high in his hand, screaming, "I'm going to kill you." Right after that, he decisively threw it straight at him. Tu Tran's face had completely lost its usual calm. "How dare you?" Thien gasped in pure terror, unable to utter a single word, but Tu Tran immediately smashed a brick right into his head, forcing him to swallow his words. Thien was sent flying back, groaning in agonizing pain. He cried out in agony, "You psychopath! You're a total psychopath!" His slender figure stood tall, bringing comfort to the young girl. "Don't be scared, Tu Van." Snapping back to reality, Tu Tran told her, "Just stay behind me and be good." Clenching his fists, he assured her, "I'll handle this in no time." Just then, they lunged at him all at once. Tu Van panicked, facing 3 awakened ones, who all looked like ruthless killers out for blood. How could her brother possibly win against them? Sangok lunged forward with his lightning-infused fist, his voice dripping with malice. "Hey kid, what the hell are you acting so tough for?" But Tu Tran effortlessly swiped Sangok away, sending him flying. Watching this unfold, Tu Van's jaw dropped in absolute shock. Right after that, Tran Vu's heavy footsteps rushed in as he leapt high into the air. He tried to dive straight at Tu Tran, but Tu Tran quickly caught him with just one hand. Then, Tu Tran unleashed a powerful kick right into him. The battlefield descended into absolute chaos under their fierce attacks. Giant vines suddenly burst out from a tree trunk, but Tu Tran swiftly dodged them without taking a single scratch. Those sharp vine whips pierced right through the concrete wall behind him. He roared, "You're just some punk kid who looks like a high schooler. I'll punch so many holes in you, you'll look like a sieve," Van Vu declared. Tu Tran's eyes narrowed, radiating a terrifying, murderous aura. Easily dodging the incoming attacks, he lunged forward at blinding speed. As Tu Tran clenched his fist, preparing to strike, the man panicked, thinking, "This is impossible. What kind of footwork is this?" Then it hit her. She had almost forgotten that her brother actually secured the #1 rank, the champion of the Awakened College entrance exam. Staring at his back, Tu Van realized he was an exceptionally powerful Awakened one. By now, Tu Tran had sent Van Vu flying. As the dust settled, Tu Tran stood at a distance, looking down at his bruised and battered body. Tran Vu didn't fare any better and had already fallen unconscious. Sangok was also covered in bloody wounds. Tu Tran said softly, "Tu Van, take Leo home first. I'll drag these guys to the guard station before heading back." Tu Van obediently replied, "Okay." As night fell, the scene shifted inside the house, where dim light slowly fell upon Van Vu's face. He gradually regained consciousness after that brutal beating. All 3 of them were tightly bound to the wall by Tu Tran. The man screamed, "Where is this? Why did you bring us here?" Tu Tran replied, "You bastards are with the Black Mountain Guild, right? The Black Mountain Guild always gets paid before doing any job." "Spill it. Who's the employer behind this?" Van Vu burst out laughing. "Since you already know we get paid to do the job, if I spit it out, how is a thug like me supposed to survive on the streets?" Suddenly, Tu Tran released a massive wave of killing intent. A menacing glint flashed in his eyes as he thought, "It looks like you won't talk easily." As Tu Tran stepped forward, the system screen popped up, displaying his status information. Tu Tran wore a dark, ominous expression. "You guys are with the Black Mountain Guild, right? The Black Mountain Guild only works after getting paid. Spill it. Who is the employer behind this?" Despite being beaten to a bloody pulp, the man stubbornly kept his mouth shut. "Haha, if you already know I get paid to do the job, if I speak, how can a street thug like me ever face the underworld again?" Hearing those defiant words, Tu Tran slowly closed his eyes. A sinister black aura began to swirl around him. Class change in progress. As the system notification popped up, Tu Tran snapped his eyes open. "You really aren't going to talk." The system successfully completed the class change. Level 25, Tu Tran, Soul Illusionist, and Flora Mage. Strength, stamina, speed, and perception are all at 4 stars. Elemental power is at 3 stars, and mental power is at 1.5 stars. Skill, Soul, Soothing Whisper. Triggers a mental attack with the ability to hypnotize and control enemies weaker than himself. Skill, Underworld Shockwave, which condenses mental energy to release a powerful conscious shockwave, dealing wide area damage. Skill, Spirit, gathering barrier, which absorbs the magic power of hypnotized targets to form a robust defensive shield. Suddenly, a pink glow flashed in Hackbai's eyes. Hackbai was bound so tightly he looked like a wrapped sausage. Suddenly, a massive tree burst through the ground, its branches lashing out at the bound men. The lackeys following Hackbai cried out in panic, "Boss, Hackbai, what's happening to you?" Tu Tran stared directly at Hackbai. First, the legs. Flora Mage skill, soul-soothing whisper. The newly grown thorny tree immediately lunged forward, piercing straight into Hackbai's leg. Tu Tran looked down with a cold, cruel gaze. Next, the hands. As soon as the words left his mouth, a sharp thorn stabbed directly through Hackbai's palm. The thorn then pointed toward the man standing next to him. This is the price. Tu Van watched the scene before her with a look of utter confusion. That you must pay for daring to threaten Tu Van. The thorn tore through Hackbai's palm and lunged straight at the man wearing the beanie. Terrified, the man in the beanie cried out, "You little monster, what the hell are you trying to do?" Si Chen's eyes burn with bloodshot rage. He points the sharp thorns straight at the man in the hat. "You're next." Terrified, the man in the hat screams at the top of his lungs, bursting into pathetic tears of pure horror. "Stop, I will talk. I'll tell you everything. It's the son of the director of the first hospital." Si Chen's gaze grows even darker. The man in the hat keeps stammering. His name is Kim. Finally, the name is out. Kim Da, him. On June 24th, at the 17th floor rooftop pool of Zifeng Tower, Kim Da Him is living it up, drinking with some girls from the club. Just then, another guy, with his arm wrapped around a girl and a bottle of wine in his hand, walks over to Da Him. "Hey, Da Him, I heard some chick turned you down twice. Is that true?" Da Him just sips his drink, keeping quiet. The guy keeps teasing him. "How did you fail to trick a high school girl? Looks like our school's resident playboy needs to work on his game." Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, down in the pool, everyone is still partying hard and having a blast. Da Him glares at the guy in annoyance. Damn it, that bitch made him look foolish twice. Tonight, he's gonna make her pay. With that, Da Him stands up and walks away. Seeing him leave, a girl dressed in a cat cosplay asks, "Where are you going, babe?" Da Him snaps back, "To take a piss. Don't bother me." Sure enough, Da Him heads into the men's restroom to relieve himself. Just as he's chilling and draining the main, a faint sound echoes nearby. The noise catches Da Him's attention. He turns around, looking pretty pissed off. Damn it, even the light bulb is messing with me. But the next second, Da Him's eyes widen in sheer shock. Si Chen has suddenly appeared right behind him. Looking down with a cold, furious glare, he demands, "Are you Kim Da Him?" Meanwhile, in the security room, two guards are sitting back, completely relaxed. The guard with glasses says, "Those rich brats have rented out the top floor of Zifeng Tower again." The other guard replies, "No wonder all the security cameras up there are turned off." In the quiet room, the two of them keep chatting. They must be having the time of their lives up there, huh? The other guard chuckles in agreement. That's just how the rich and powerful play. The guard with glasses suddenly looks around cautiously. Then, leaning in close to his coworker, he whispers, "Hey, lean in. I heard those guys have kidnapped a bunch of girls and brought them here." The other guard's eyes widen in disbelief. "What? Are you serious?" he asks, wanting to make sure. A while back, a female student ended her own life after they assaulted her right here. But their wealthy parents managed to sweep the whole thing under the rug. The other guard asks, "Wow, really? That actually happened?" The guard with glasses keeps spilling the details to his coworker. "Let me tell you, they've done countless horrible things. Don't let their fancy, respectable looks fool you." The guard's voice drops to a low whisper. Deep down, they're nothing but animals. Back in the restroom, seeing Si Chen standing there, Da Him quickly zips up his pants, his face a mix of utter confusion and growing dread. Who are you?" Si Chen just stands before him, cold and still like a statue. Da Him backs away, trembling with fear. "There shouldn't be any outsiders on the top floor. How the hell did you get up here? Damn it, I'm calling the cops on you." With that, Da Him scrambles to dial his phone. Suddenly, a ringtone starts playing. Da Him stares at the screen in pure terror as the phone keeps ringing. The person he was trying to call was none other than Hei Pai of the Heishan gang. Si Chen looks down at the glowing phone in his own hand. "So you're the one who hired people to go after Xiao Yun." The air in the room instantly turns ice cold. Da Him freezes, his mind racing in panic. Why? Why do you have Hei Pai's phone?" he stammers frantically. "Where is Hei Pai? What did you do to him? Si Chen doesn't say a word. He just glares at Da-him with razor-sharp intensity, then crushes the phone into pieces with his bare hand. Witnessing that terrifying display of power, Da-him loses his mind with fear. Stay back. Who the hell are you? Before he can even get an answer, Da-him lets out a blood-curdling shriek. In the next split second, Si Chen delivers a brutal punch, sending blood spraying from Da-him's nose as his entire body is sent flying backward. Da-him crashes and rolls across the tiled floor, shattering the glass railing as shards rain down around him. He lets out a painful, pathetic groan. Scrambling to his feet in a panic, he screams at the top of his lungs, "Help! Somebody help me! Save me!" Tears stream down his face as he weeps hysterically. Da-him crawls frantically to the edge of the pool. "Hey, what's wrong with you guys?" But there is no response. Everyone there has already taken their last breath. Like a relentless monster, Si Chen slowly approaches from behind. Da-him is paralyzed with absolute terror. With blood dripping down his face, Da-him stares back at Si Chen with wild, frantic eyes. Damn it. Si Chen's expression remains completely unchanged, his eyes colder than ice. Da-him screams in desperation, "You psychopath! Who the hell are you? You and I have no beef. Why are you doing this to me?" As Tu Tran draws closer and closer, Da-him grows more and more terrified. "I told you to stay back. Didn't you hear me? Do you even know who my dad is? My dad is the director of the #1 hospital." Da-him threatens Tu Tran through his tears. "If you dare touch me, my dad will kill you. He'll kill you." Hearing this, Tu Tran's eyes flash. "Shut your mouth." Da-him's eyes turn bloodshot, completely hypnotized by Tu Tran. Da-ham's body slumps to one side as Tu Tran slowly steps forward. Looking down from above, Tu Tran orders commandingly, "Pick it up." Da-him immediately reaches his hand toward the glass shards on the floor. As Da-ham picks up a shard, we see that pure evil doesn't just exist in the dungeons, it exists right here in the human world. At this moment, Da-ham is harassing a girl. These people use their wealth to commit crimes. The girl under Da-ham seems to have ended her own life. Da-ham's lackeys are in an absolute panic. "Damn it, Boss Kim, that girl just took her own life." Facing his panicked lackeys, Da-ham just sips his drink, lets out a quiet burp, and says nonchalantly, "What's the panic?" before using his influence to get away with it, employing methods more despicable than a demon's to do whatever he wants in this world. In a drunken slur, Da-ham says, "Just say she slipped and fell to her death. What goes on the autopsy report is up to my dad." Over here, the man wearing a hat screams, It's Kim Da-ham. He offered us a massive sum of money, telling us to do whatever it takes to make Tu Van remember this day forever. But this time, you messed with the wrong person." At this moment, Da-ham raises the glass shard high in his hand. Tu Tran thinks, "Every single threat near Tu Van, I will completely erase them." Da-ham holds the shard right above his head, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Even if I have to plunge into the darkest depths, I will do whatever it takes." Tu Tran looks at Da-ham and coldly orders, "Do it." June 24th, 6 p.m., inside the Wild Dungeon. The makeup exam has just ended. Tu Tran puts his hands in his pockets, the dungeon boss having been defeated. The entrance to the dungeon should be open by now. Just hang in there a bit longer. The guild's team will be here very soon. Kung Din is sitting on the ground, clutching his arm. Kung Din looks down, coughing. "Tu Tran, once we get out, I'm going to tell everyone the truth. You're the one who handled everything today." At this moment, Tu Tran begins to use hypnosis on Kung Din. Suddenly, a man appears in Kung Din's consciousness. That man seems to have detected Tu Tran. Tu Tran immediately realizes he's been spotted. This is bad. Tu Tran senses that Tu Van is in danger. The system window pops up. Astral Beast Taming, Bound Beast, Astral Orbit Leap. Consume mental energy to teleport yourself to your contracted beast, or summon the beast to your side. In an instant, Tu Tran vanishes right in front of Kung Din's eyes. Kung Din is completely dazed by Tu Tran's sudden disappearance. To think someone could actually hold 2 or more classes at the same time. At this moment, bolts of lightning crackle around Tu Tran, and a pair of horns begins to sprout from his head. Tu Tran's eyes suddenly burn a fierce red. Kung Din can only let out a bitter laugh. "Just how many secrets are you hiding, Tu Tran?" Just then, the sound of rushing footsteps echoes. "Found them. They're right up ahead." Kung Huyen arrives with a medical team, looking incredibly panicked. "Hurry, save them!" Kung Huyen shouts from across the crater. "Over here, over this way." The medics quickly pop open their medical kits and rush over to treat Kung Din. Stop the bleeding first. Get the bandages ready. Kung Huyen quickly rushes to Kung Din's side. Kung Huyen kneels down in front of Kung Din, asking anxiously, Kung Din, how are you? The boss of this dungeon is a B class. It's a miracle you guys managed to survive. Meanwhile, the medical team that Kung Huyen brought spreads out to treat the others. One medic approaches the girl, checking on her. The examiner is going to be fine. A medic walks over to the curly-haired man. They've all snapped out of their out-of-body state. The man groans in pain, muttering, Why is it nothing but nightmares? Kung Huyen turns around and asks the medic, Oh, that reminds me. Where is that kid Tu Tran? The medic replies, We haven't spotted any other injured people yet. Hearing this, Kung Huyen wonders, Did he get scared and run off to hide? Search the area again. Kung Huyen looks at Kung Din, speaking with frustration. This is all the school's fault. Their dungeon screening was completely sloppy, causing you to get hurt this badly. Hearing this, Kung Din lowers his eyes, while Kung Huyen fumes. Once I get out of here, I'll have them all fired. Kung Lam walks over, shoving his hands into his pockets. No, this is actually the most perfect outcome. Behind Kung Lam stands another white-haired man. Kung Lam steps right up to Kung Din. During an exam, unexpected accidents happen. Even the examiners were defeated by the monsters. Seeing Kung Lam approach, Kung Din immediately stands up. Gong Lin spreads his arms wide in front of Gong Ding. In this moment of despair, having Gong Lin's son solve all the problems, isn't that just a perfect script? Gong Ding remains silent for a long moment before finally replying to Gong Lin. Actually, both the dungeon boss and the monsters in here were all Zichen. The moment those words leave his mouth, Gong Lin grips Gong Ding's injured shoulder, making him wince in agonizing pain. Gong Lin leans in close, bringing his face right next to Gong Ding's. You were the one who solved it, he says, digging his fingers deep into Gong Ding's wound, making it bleed. Gong Xuan also remains dead silent upon hearing Gong Lin's words. Gong Lin continues. Today's crisis. Gong Lin emphasizes every single word. Everyone present at the scene saw it clearly. Hearing this, the man following Gong Lin can only remain silent. Gong Lin grips even tighter, and blood quickly soaks through the bandages. Gong Ding winces, his face contorted in pain. Gong Lin calmly repeats, You were the one who solved it. He then releases Gong Ding's shoulder, wipes his hands with a towel, and gets ready to head out. Today's graduation ceremony is your true stage. Gong Ding clutches his shoulder and hangs his head. At 8 p.m. in the apartment, everyone is raising their soda bottles to celebrate. The three of them, Ziken, Ziyun, and Ziyun's friend, are happily enjoying a hot pot together. Ziyun's friend says cheerfully, Congratulations on getting into the International Central Academy of Fine Arts, Ziyun. Ziyun smiles brightly upon hearing this. Her friend pats her on the shoulder. You can finally pursue your dream. You're definitely going to be a great artist. Ziyun laughs happily. Meanwhile, Ziken quietly sips his Coca-Cola without saying a word. Seeing her older brother only focused on eating and drinking, Ziyun rests her chin on her hand. Seriously, bro, how are you not even a little bit surprised? Ziken just grunts in response, and Ziyun sighs. It's like you already knew this would happen. Hearing this, Ziken just smiles gently and replies, No, I'm genuinely happy for you. But deep down he thinks, After all, in my past life, today was also the day you got your acceptance letter. Ziyun's friend rests her chin in her hands and lets out a sigh. I'm so happy for you, Xiaoyun. Getting to study in the Saint River Kingdom is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that most people can only dream of. Ziyun replies, feeling a bit discouraged. But the Saint River Kingdom is so far away, and the cost of living there must be incredibly high. Ziken sets his soda can down and says, You don't need to worry about the distance or the tuition. Ziyun looks at him in surprise. Seeing her reaction, Zichen smiles warmly. After graduation, I'll be moving to the Saint River Kingdom for work too. Ziyun is confused at first, but then she leaps to her feet in excitement, rushing over to Ziken. What did you say? Did you actually get recruited by a guild in the Saint River Kingdom? Ziken just gives a small smile, while Ziyun's friend is equally shocked. Those are all massive, top-tier super guilds. How on earth did you pull that off? Ziyun grabs Zichen's hands, smiling from ear to ear. That's amazing. That means we can live together in the Saint River Kingdom. Her friend is also super excited. Man, I'm so jealous. I'll definitely have to apply to a school there too. Zichen looks at his younger sister and smiles. Seeing Xiaoyun's happy face right in front of him, he thinks to himself, this time, you won't have to give up on your dreams anymore. Later, Zichen heads into the bathroom and turns on the shower. Standing under the running water, Zichen's expression turns serious. The threat looming over Xiaoyun has been dealt with, and the graduation trial is completely over. Zichen recalls what happened earlier. First place in this exam is mine, and the 1 million prize money is as good as in my pocket. The system interface pops up. Class conversion in progress. According to my agreement with Gong Ding, I should be able to collect the 1 million prize tomorrow and pay off my debt to Qingji. After his shower, Zichen sits on his bed, lost in thought. Zichen recalls what that person said about wrath being sealed after arriving in the human world. If I had known, how could I have helped him break the seal? Because of that, the 3-year timeline I estimated is far too risky, and I need to get to the Saint River Kingdom as soon as possible to speed up my search for wrath. Zichen's gaze darkens. But before that, I need to find some trustworthy teammates, and tomorrow's graduation ceremony is the perfect opportunity. Elsewhere, Ling Yu is sitting across from Cavendish. Ling Yu speaks up. The glutton has recently appeared in Changshan County. Cavendish sips his tea and replies, "Oh? Tell me more." Ling Yu lowers his eyes and begins to report. The moment I received the news, I rushed straight to the scene. Ling Yu describes everything he knows in detail. The surveillance footage at the crime scene had already been destroyed beforehand. The scene only had a few traces of a struggle and some blood splatters. The culprit's method remains identical to the previous cases, killing them first, then completely consuming them. Cavendish listens intently as Ling Yu continues. His targets are always awakened ones, who possess exceptionally powerful, unique abilities. Furthermore, the tier of his victims has been steadily rising. Lin Vu's gaze darkened, a clear sign that that guy is growing stronger at a rapid pace. Cavendish continued pouring tea into the cup. Lin Vu went on. Once the glutton starts, he won't stop committing crimes. I bet he'll strike again very soon. Could he show up around this time? Hearing everything Lin Vu said, Cavendish only smiled faintly. How interesting, Cavendish murmured. Lin Vu slid a photo across the table, adding, and I've got even more interesting news. Seeing the photo Lin Vu handed over, Cavendish just paused. Oh, there were circled markings on the photo. Lin Vu explained. This time, the glutton struck in an alleyway within a cheap rental neighborhood. Furthermore, this alley, marked with a circled X and a star on the photo, is less than 100 meters from Tu Tran's house, 68 meters, to be exact. Hearing those words, Cavendish remained silent, offering no reply. Seeing Cavendish's reaction, Lin Vu's expression grew cold. So far, we haven't captured any video or audio of the glutton. Besides, Tu Tran's recent jump in power during actual combat has far exceeded our expectations. My brother and I both saw it with our own eyes. Lin Vu's voice grew a bit heavy. So right now, I have two theories. Either the glutton has targeted Tu Tran. Cavendish blew gently on the tea in his cup. Cavendish raised his eyes to look at Lin Vu. Or, the glutton is actually Tu Tran. Behind them, a subordinate asked, Sir, are you really not going to attend the graduation ceremony? After all, they are students you personally trained. Principal Nguyen Lung smiled faintly, lost in thought. He opened the birdcage and spoke. I only provided them with a safe haven when they were weak. Now that the children have grown up, they should find their own path for the future. Suddenly, Nguyen Lung lowered his head and let out a soft exclamation. He stared at a bird still inside the cage and whispered, There is still one that won't fly away. Could it be that it doesn't know which way to go? The scene shifts to the hall, where students were gradually filling up the empty seats. Ma Long gripped the back of the seat in front of him and said in awe, This is the first time I've ever seen the school use a hall this massive. Sitting in front, Hang Ta crossed his arms as a voice whispered in his ear. Many big shots from the guilds are coming today, so they definitely have to show some respect. Hang Hu turned around and joined the conversation. I wonder how Tu Tran and Kung Din did on their extra exam. There hasn't been a single leak. The school's security is incredibly tight. He lowered his head slightly. We'll find out soon enough, though. Meanwhile, Ma Long cheered excitedly. Is that even a question? My boy Tu Tran definitely won. Hearing this, Kung Din's lackeys on the other side chimed in. Hey, Four Eyes, stop bringing up that Tu Tran of yours. He stands absolutely no chance against our boss. The championship is definitely going to Kung Din. With that, both sides began pointing their thumbs down, mocking each other. Meanwhile, backstage, Kung Lam reasoned, For this graduation ceremony, the major domestic guilds will also send their representatives. In fact, every single board member of the Imperial Guild will be attending. Nguyen Quang, the founder of the Imperial Guild Alliance, and Min Qi, the founder of the Imperial Guild, are currently being welcomed. Please take your seats in the front row, distinguished guests. Glinting behind his sharp glasses, Kung Lam muttered, "The election for the new leadership of the Imperial Guild is just around the corner. Right now, the votes between my father and Minki are tied. Today's ceremony is the perfect opportunity to sway the undecided board members. The position of chairman must belong to my father. Once the ceremony begins, Vice President Cavendish will personally present the championship cup to you. The entire world will remember this day. This will be your starting point on the path to conquering the peak, and it will also be the most glorious moment for our Kung family," he added. "Once you're up there, remember to speak politely, don't make any mistakes, and show everyone your true value." Kung Din lowered his head in silence, temporarily lost for words. His hands clenched the documents tightly. Shortly after, the graduation ceremony of the National Awakened University began. The female host spoke into the microphone. "Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Having gone through countless trials, hardships, and relentless struggles, this year's graduation exam for the Awakened University has successfully concluded. I am deeply honored to declare the official commencement of the class of 2015 graduation ceremony of the National Awakened University." Thundering applause erupted, yet Kung Din's face remained as cold as ever. In another corner, Tu Tran watched silently. Crossing his arms, he glanced to the side. Up in the stands, she was extending her palms toward the trophy, continuing her task. At this highly anticipated moment, we will witness a glorious coronation together. The results of this year's graduation evaluation will be announced at the same time. The ultimate champion. Next, please join me in welcoming the Vice President of the World Guild Alliance with a warm round of applause, Mr. Cavendish. Vice President Cavendish will announce the ultimate winner of this year's graduation exam and personally present the award to our champion. Cavendish quickly stepped up to the podium to speak. "I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Imperial Guild for this honorable invitation. That is why I am honored to be here today, witnessing the spectacular performance of the Eastern Sun Kingdom's brilliant new generation. Many of you may not know this, but an unexpected crisis occurred during the makeup graduation exam." Hearing this, Ma Long and his friends could not help but get curious. Drooping his eyelids, he announced that the Wilderness Dungeon was initially classified as a D rank, but in reality, it was a highly dangerous, disguised B rank dungeon. The entire arena erupted in shock. A B rank dungeon? Did I hear that right? Even a professional guild would struggle to handle a B rank dungeon. How on earth did they survive and make it out? Cavendish slowly pulled out a card. Just when everyone was sinking into absolute despair, this candidate used his nimble footwork and incredible skills to perform a miracle, fighting tooth and nail to defeat a high-level monster. He single-handedly defeated the B-rank dungeon lord, saving the entire team's lives. He is the strongest graduate, the ultimate champion of this exam. Down below, Gong Ting did not seem interested at all. And then, his name was called. Confetti cannons blasted one after another. Gong Ting stood up and walked onto the stage amidst the roaring cheers of the crowd. Ma Long was completely dumbfounded. How could Xishan lose to him? Hang Zuo was also frustrated, grumbling, "No way, there has to be something fishy going on." Gong Ting's lackeys were ecstatic, shouting, "Are you convinced yet? Our bro is the champion." Everyone else was also stunned. A single person cleared a B-rank dungeon on his own? Being this strong is just absurd. The guy sitting nearby held his head, sighing. Comparing ourselves to others will only drive us crazy. Seriously, even an E-rank dungeon was enough to give us a hard time. The entire arena cheered, as expected of President Gong Ting. "You are the absolute best, so cool and incredibly strong." Meanwhile, as Gong Ting walked up the steps, Xishan sat below with his head down, his eyes filled with sorrow. He recalled his own words, "Gong Ting, let's make a deal. First place in this competition goes to you, and the 1 million credits of prize money goes to me. But there is one condition. You cannot tell anyone else about what happens next." Back to reality. Xishan frowned as the spotlight shone directly on Gong Ting. "Next, we now welcome Gong Ting to the stage to share his victory speech." The crowd whispered in admiration, "He is so handsome and elegant. Yeah, a true young hero." Gong Lin smiled proudly at these flattering words. As expected of Gong Lin's son, the young master of the Gong family certainly lives up to his reputation. His future is truly limitless. Gong Ting stood before the audience, silent for a moment. His father's warning echoed in his mind. "When you go up there in a bit, remember to speak carefully, do not make any mistakes, and bring out your absolute value." Gong Ting frowned, thinking, is this my absolute value? He began to read, the chairman is correct. Facing a powerful enemy, saving the team, and killing the Lord. But I am not the one who did all of that, Gong Ting declared firmly. That was Sichin. He was completely startled the moment his name was called. Cavendish was momentarily surprised and gasped in interest. Below, Gong Lin started to lose his mind, screaming, Gong Ting, what on earth are you saying? Gong Ting's lackeys were utterly traumatized. What is President Gong Ting doing? Bro, are you crazy? Gong Ting lowered his head and explained. At that time, there was a sudden change inside the dungeon. Examiner Yi fell unconscious, leaving only Sichin and me. Sichin put his hand over his mouth, a drop of sweat rolling down his face. Frowning, he confessed everything. He is the strongest lightning assassin I have ever met. With his superior skills and experience, he easily defeated the monster horde. He used his sheer strength to show me what true power really means. This is the first time I have ever realized that such a powerful awakened person exists in this world. Sichin was the one who handled everything. So the champion of this graduation exam is Sichin. He thought in disbelief, he's actually protecting my secret. Below, the crowd whispered among themselves, what on earth is going on? Wasn't it said that the exam results were professionally verified by the Empire's team? Is there a problem with the results? Cavendish grinned, thinking how interesting this was. Ma Long yelled excitedly, I knew it. There is definitely something fishy about this exam. Hang Zuo chimed in. We need a thorough investigation. Sitting below, Ming Jing suddenly glanced to the side, while Yuan Guang turned to Gong Lin and asked, Vice President Gong, what is going on here? Don't you think you owe us an explanation? He was so furious that the veins on the back of his hands popped as he gripped the armrest tightly. Gong Lin stood up and stormed off in a rage. Standing on the stage, Gong Ting lowered his head as his father walked past him. He tore his speech in half, thinking, how should I realize my value in life? And which path to choose in the future should be decided by Gong Ting himself. At the same time, the bird finally flew out of the cage. Yuan Lung looked up, watching it and murmuring, it seems he knows exactly where he should fly now. Meanwhile, Gong Ting thought to himself, Sichin, you win this time. He listened with a subtle smile, but the next moment, his voice was filled with raw determination. Next time, I will definitely surpass you. Across the world, there are tens of thousands of guilds of various sizes. Based on their strength, they are divided into 5 ranks, from highest to lowest. Pinnacle, top, tier, gold, silver, and common. Among them, a top-tier guild is the absolute limit that most awakened can ever hope to reach. In the entire world, there are only 12 top-tier guilds, and the Imperial Guild is one of them. Cutting to an office, a young man desperately pleads, please, just look at my resume one more time. Just take a quick look. I can do anything, even cleaning. I can sweep the floors. She waves her hand, flatly rejecting him. Our Divine Eye Guild isn't taking any more support players this year. Try your luck somewhere else. For most ordinary graduates, landing a job offer from any guild is an uphill battle. Everyone is crying out, did you get an offer yet? Still nothing. The job market this year is just brutal. But if you're lucky enough to join a top-tier guild, Charleston, the HR manager of the Imperial Guild, holds up a red card and announces, your identity information has been registered. Here is your employment certificate. As a member of the winning team, you can directly join the Imperial Guild. Mr. Ma Long. Ma Long holds it in his hands, tears streaming down his face. This is basically his ultimate life goal coming true. He cheers. Imperial Guild, here I come. Magic Beast Research Department, here I come. Hang Ta chimes in, I'm in the combat department, while Hang Hu cheers joyfully. I got assigned to the research department too. The 3 of them throw their arms around each other's shoulders to celebrate. They've actually made it into a top-tier guild. They've finally made it. Meanwhile, 2 other young guys are weeping in regret. If only we had joined Tu Tran's team from the start. I'm kicking myself so hard right now. As for Kung Than, he folds his arms, looking completely annoyed. Just the thought of having to work with these guys in the future is already giving me a headache. Meanwhile, in front of the elevator, Min Kin asks if things are going smoothly at the recruitment fair. His subordinate reports, this year, 2 teams scored perfect marks. There are a lot of new recruits, and the registration process is currently underway. Suddenly, the elevator doors slide open right in front of him. Cavendish and Min Kin are momentarily startled to see each other. Min Kin quickly strikes up a conversation. What a coincidence. Is the council president attending the recruitment fair as well? Walking alongside him, Cavendish replies, I'm here to say goodbye to someone. Min King casts a judgmental glance at him. Oh? It seems the council president thinks highly of him too. Cavendish confirms, a genius of this caliber is honestly a massive steal for your Imperial Guild. On the other side, Charleston adjusts his glasses, looking puzzled. Wait, why are we still missing one person? Hey, why hasn't Tu Tran from your team come to register yet? He's the only one left. Stop wasting my time. Ma Long immediately looks around. Tu Tran? Tu Tran? And Hang Ta also looks around frantically. Yeah, where on earth is Tu Tran? Suddenly, someone spots him. Ah, over there. Ma Long rushes over to him. Why haven't you submitted your registration form yet? Hang Ta chimes in. How can you still have the peace of mind to take a piss right now? The Imperial Guild people are breathing down our necks. Seeing this, Charleston opens his thermos of hot tea and scoffs. Young people these days are really something, aren't they? They're barely anything yet, and they're already acting like hotshot superstars. Even if you're number one, you still have to follow the proper procedure. We are the top-ranked Imperial Guild. Now get over here and fill out this registration form. Tu Tran suddenly announces, I have no intention of joining the Imperial Guild, making Charleston spit out his tea. His friends instantly go into a frenzy. What on earth are you talking about? Get a hold of yourself. Don't talk crazy. Even Kung Than and his crew are flabbergasted. What did that guy just say? He doesn't want to join the Imperial Guild? The office erupts into whispers. Did you hear that? What is that kid doing? Tu Tran said he doesn't want to join the Imperial Guild. Even Min King can't help but gasp in shock. What? Charleston slams his desk, shouting furiously. Listen here, kid. This isn't a place where you can just spout whatever nonsense you want. High-level management has already reserved a spot for you. Countless people are cracking their heads open trying to squeeze in, and they still can't even get close. It's a position most members of the Imperial Guild can't even reach in a lifetime. Tu Tran lowers his head and speaks calmly. I never said I wanted to join the Imperial Guild. This drives Charleston even crazier. Then what the hell did you come here for? Suddenly, Cavendish bursts out laughing. He exclaims, This is truly the opportunity I've been waiting for. The others look on in absolute confusion. Why is the council president here? The students quickly bow. Greetings, council president. Cavendish then makes an offer directly to Tu Tran. If you don't want to join the Imperial Guild, would you be interested in coming to the Holy River Kingdom with me? I can personally recommend you to the local Radiant Ember Knight Order. Kung Din and Kung Than are completely shocked. Min Kin's eyes widen, utterly bewildered. The office bursts into chatter. The Radiant Ember Knight Order. That's the absolute highest pinnacle guild in the world. I've heard that name on international news before. There are only 6 pinnacle guilds in the entire world. Word has it they possess the power to annihilate a whole nation at any moment. Plus, they never recruit members publicly, it's strictly by internal recommendation. But Seekin just reached into his pocket and turned them down flat, saying, No thanks. I have no intention of joining any guild. I'm only here today to recruit teammates. Cavendish stared wide-eyed at that black card, while Ma Long shrieked in absolute shock. Recruiting teammates? Don't tell me you've already started your own guild? Charleston immediately snatched the card away. What kind of garbage are you spewing? A freshly graduated student starting his own guild? How is that even possible? But a second later, he shrieked. The Black Crow Guild. I've never heard of this in my life. Guild registration only opens from May to June every year, and you need at least 1 million in registered capital. And you literally just graduated. Unless you got recommended by another guild, there is no way in hell you could have registered successfully. You're just a brat who just graduated with 0 connections and 0 capital. What makes you think you can pull this off? But right then, a subordinate reported that the registry for the Black Crow Guild actually existed. The Black Crow Guild was registered on April 18th and officially approved on May 18th. The founder is Sichin. Gong Ting was stunned, quickly doing the math in his head. Registered on May 18th. That meant Sichin had been planning to start his own guild a whole month before the exams even began. No wonder he only cared about the prize money and didn't give a damn about winning the championship. From the very beginning, his sole objective was to establish his own guild, completely looking down on the Empire's guild. Ming Jing stood there in absolute shock, lost in thought. With his mind going completely blank, Gong Ting muttered to himself. Cavendish was equally blindsided by the news. He stared at Sichin's face, realizing that this kid truly didn't care about anyone else. Cavendish smirked to himself, thinking, You and her are really two peas in a pod. Sitchin snatched his card back and spoke up. To raid a dungeon, a guild needs at least 2 members. Right now, the Black Crow Guild only has me. He held the card out. Gong Ting panicked as Sichin stepped right up to him. With a serious expression, Sichin called out his name. Gong Ting, would you like to join my Black Crow Guild? Yeah.